The Immortal Stranger. Starting as a traveling merchant, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126 Life History. Behind a large sand dune outside the post station, there is a winding sand road with various spells and prohibitions. At the end of the sand road, there is a medium-sized sand cave. Under the protection of magic power, the ground of the sand cave looks very clean and refreshing. At this time, Moqiu, the owner of the Black Cloud Martial Arts Hall, was lying on the dry ground with his eyes closed. His chest rose and fell regularly, and he was obviously asleep. Sitting beside her were a man and a woman, Zhao Chen and Zhen Qingyan. There was no mysterious space shrouded in fog, nor was there a stone tablet that suddenly stood up. Those were just illusions created by Zhen Qingyan with the magical power Dream of the Goddess of Beauty. As a third-grade magical power, the bubble generated by Dream of the Goddess of Beauty has infinite uses, and naturally it is not only the function of teleportation in the same water system. Apart from anything else, the bubble alone has its own space, which can carry people and store things, which is very practical. And the scene that Moqiu just saw was Zhen Qingyan covering the sand cave with this magical power and weaving a dream bubble for it. As for this sand cave, it was also dug out by Zhen Qingyan temporarily. You went through so much trouble just to sell her the Yunfeng Daoshu. Zhen Qingyan's cold face showed a thoughtful expression, but she did not ask the reason, and said, "Do you want me to bring your other two targets as well?" "Not for now." On the same night, many people in the same convoy received trades and gifts, which is obviously too ostentatious and easy to expose us. It's better to stagger the time and take it slowly. Safety first. Zhao Chen shook his head and said, "It turns out that letting me play this scene is not entirely a shill, but also for the purpose of pretending that you can pull people from different places to trade." Zhen Qingyan nodded slightly, and the corners of her mouth also raised a small arc. Zhao Chen saw her faint smile. His heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but joked, "You, Zhen Qingyan, are acting again." "No. I'm seriously playing the role of a girl from a noble family who gradually falls in love with you and tries to change her personality," Zhen Qingyan said confidently. "Why do you have to set up such a strange setting?" Zhao Chen asked in surprise. Although he felt a little happy in his heart, it was okay. There must be a reason to help you unconditionally, otherwise why would a girl from a noble family run around for you? She is not your friend, and you have never saved her life. The incarnation must act logically, Zhen Qingyan explained seriously. "Didn't you say before that you don't have to act so real in front of people who know your background?" Zhao Chen asked in confusion. "I lied to you." Zhen Qingyan glanced at Zhao Chen indifferently and uttered three words lightly. Looking at Zhen Qingyan's expressionless face that had returned to its original state, Zhao Chen was speechless for a moment and asked after a while, "Which one is a lie to me?" "Guess." Zhen Qingyan paused after applying this sentence and added, "Zhen Qingyan herself is a girl who appears cold on the surface, but is a little black-bellied inside. I can see that. Whether it's deliberately not giving oxygen during the Sword River transmission, or tricking Li Yunfeng into getting free skills and treasures, this doesn't seem like something Fei Meng would do. It can only be Zhen Qingyan's innate attribute." After complaining a few words in his heart, Zhao Chen cast his gaze at the sleeping Moqiu again, and said carefully, "Do you think the treasure information she gave at the end is true or false?" "It should be half true and half false. It is true that there is a passage leading to a secret oasis in the cracks of the endless desert, but it is probably her guess that there are treasures in the oasis." After a brief analysis, Zhen Qingyan looked at Zhao Chen and said, "Didn't you recognize the value of this information and exchange the Yinshan Taoist book with her? I just can't understand how she, a martial artist who has only opened her eyes, got the information from the great hero Ma Guangming, and the second hero Ma Guangliang and the 7 heroes of the South Desert. You should know that the brothers are both cultivators with 8th level magic power, ranked 3rd and 4th on the human outstanding people list, with great strength and rich experience. Even if MOQIU really had an affair with Ma Guangming as rumored, it was impossible for him to get such secret information. Zhao Chen frowned. Zheng Qinggan raised her lips again and said, "Then why didn't you ask directly just now?" Zhao Chen glanced at her and said unhappily, "Is it appropriate for me, a mysterious, powerful, and unfathomable being, to ask this? Wouldn't Master Emma be suspicious immediately? So, you plan to use the Kaizi control heart method in the 12 methods of heart light." Zheng Qinggan immediately had a guess when she saw Zhao Chen take out a ring inlaid with white gemstones. The ring was exactly the magic weapon carried by the leader of the Che family who was hunting down Qi Fimeng. He also tried to use this ring in conjunction with the Kaizi control heart method to control Qi Fimeng to surrender. Unfortunately, Zhao Chen intercepted him while it was still in the preparation stage. Zhao Chen did not answer Zheng Qinggan's question. After he put on the ring, he began to make various hand seals continuously, which were extremely complicated and tedious. After more than a minute, he stopped the action, and the finger wearing the ring tapped the center of MOQIU's eyebrows in the air. The next moment, MOQIU suddenly opened her eyes and sat up by herself. It's just that her eyes were empty and without focus, like a pool of stagnant water. "Is the treasure you mentioned before true or false?" Zhao Chen did not ask about her privacy right away. After all, the effect of the Kaizi control heart method spell is limited. If the other party's resistance is too great, it is very likely to lose control. And she has already revealed the treasure once, so her mental defense is definitely not that high, so it is more than appropriate to use it as a breakthrough point. "It's true, I saw the entrance to that passage with my own eyes," MOQIU answered in a flat tone. "Seen with your own eyes?" Zhao Chen was stunned for a moment, and then asked, "How could you see such a secret passage with your own eyes?" Hearing this question, MOQIU obviously hesitated for a moment, but finally answered, "The elixir I used to open the eye orifice may come from a demon. It gave me a special ability, which is to share the vision of my loved ones. But this ability cannot be controlled. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But a week ago, a sudden sharing allowed me to see the entrance to the secret passage with the help of Ma Guangming's eyes." Zhao Chen knew that there was a certain probability that some special abilities could be obtained by refining the orifice using the materials of demons and demons. For example, the Yazizi Mu he sold. People who use it to open their minds may get curse-like spells. However, if you accept the gift of the evil spirit, your fate will inevitably be connected with it. Although the evil spirits will most likely not pay attention to the monks, who have established a certain connection before the supernatural power. If the other party really wants to do something, it will definitely be such a monk who will be the first to suffer. But, sharing the vision of the closest relatives? Zhao Chen showed surprise and asked directly, "You are Ma Guangming's daughter? Then why did you sell his opportunity?" "The so-called closest relatives are just parents of children. You can't be the mother of Ma Zia." "Yes. I'm his illegitimate daughter, so he would take care of me occasionally." At this point, MOQIU's emotions suddenly became agitated. "But I hate him. It was because of his indifference that my mother had such a hard life and died before she was 30. I don't want his plan to succeed and get the benefits. But his calculations are very powerful. I dare not rashly spread the information I spied. Fortunately, I met the mysterious adult just now. In addition, it seems that there is still a large area in that passage that has not been explored. Some places are very dangerous. Once you enter by mistake, you will disappear. So he plans to find his sworn sister, Miss Gong, the breaking delusion eye, to help explore. But from what I know about him, if the opportunities in the oasis are generally okay, once the benefits are great, he and his brother are likely to kill each other. I have a good relationship with Miss Gong's sister, and I don't want to see such a result. Chapter 127 The Influence of History. Seeing that MOQIU was getting more and more excited, Zhao Chen immediately stopped the Kaizi mind control method, and Zheng Qinggan also took action at the same time, causing him to fall into a deep sleep again. It turns out that Master MOQIU is the illegitimate daughter of Ma Guangming, the Sun Sword. This man is really heartless. Not to mention the true teachings of cultivating magic power, he didn't even prepare the method of cultivating to the 9th orifice for his daughter. She really deserves to be betrayed with such important information. Zhao Chen's originally good impression of the 7 heroes of the South Desert instantly dropped several levels. Zheng Qingyuan shook her head and said, maybe Master Mo doesn't want to owe her father a favor. That's right, if Ma Guangming really didn't recognize this daughter, there probably wouldn't be rumors that Master Mo had an affair with him. This is probably because when he went to greet someone, the other party misunderstood his relationship with Master Mo. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen rubbed his forehead to relieve the dull pain in his head. Although his soul is much stronger than other key realm cultivators, he hasn't cultivated magic power after all, so it's still a bit reluctant to use magic in advance. After all, the Kaizi control heart method is different from the god walking curse that comes with his position, and the requirements for soul power are much higher. Next, after Zheng Qingyuan quietly sent Master Mo back to her own tent, the two of them sealed the entrance to the underground cave and returned to the carriage of the Golden Art Martial Arts Hall. As soon as he entered the carriage, Zhao Chen saw that Qi Fimeng had woken up and was looking at him with a smile. Fimeng, have you recovered from your injuries? Zhao Chen smiled sincerely when he saw this. Although Zheng Qingyuan is also Qi Fimeng, she can't be compared with her original status in his mind. Well, because I used up all my accumulated foundation in the Shen family castle before, my soul was also slightly traumatized, so I need to rely on sleep to recover. Qi Fimeng briefly explained, and then said, by the way, our next mission will be in a month. 1 month. Why is the interval suddenly so long? Zhao Chen was a little confused at first, but then he reacted and said in surprise, your strength has increased significantly again. I have opened my mouth, and my inner world has begun to take shape. Qi Fimeng smiled and nodded. It is precisely because of the great harvest this time, and it took some time to consolidate the foundation, that I woke up at this time. As for opening the orifices, the eyes, ears, nose and mouth are the 7 orifices, corresponding to the internal organs. Once the 7 orifices are opened, the body can initially form a self-circulation. It can not only breathe in and out pure vital energy, but also achieve twice the result with half the effort in cultivation. In fighting, the true energy can be restored more quickly, and there is no need to worry about exhausting the true energy after a few moves. Only masters who have opened the 7 orifices can truly make a name for themselves in the human martial arts world. Congratulations. Zhao Chen congratulated from the bottom of his heart. The special mission in 3 months is imminent. It will be a great thing for the lives of both of them if their strength can be improved. I just started a little earlier than you. With your current accumulation, once the true energy is perfected, refining the orifice will be a natural result. It will not be a problem to form the inner world within 3 months. Qi Fimeng replied with a smile, then turned to Zheng Qingyuan and said in an ordering tone, I'm awake, you can go back to human to continue dealing with Li Yunfeng. Zheng Qingyuan glanced at her and did not answer. Instead, she took Zhao Chen's hand and said, I'll go first. When you return to human, I will share with you the benefits I got from Li Yunfeng. As soon as the voice fell, her whole body turned into bubbles and then shattered and disappeared. It sounded as if I was a kept gigolo, and the money for keeping came from the pocket of another rich second generation. What kind of bloody plot is this in a third-rate romance novel? Zhao Chen complained a few words in his heart, but readily accepted this setting. Anyway, he would not suffer any loss. But on the surface, he still glanced at Qi Fimeng and asked with a smile, what are you playing at? The incarnation is not an independent clone. Although Zheng Qingyuan and Qi Fimeng have slightly different temperaments, their thoughts and memories are the same. I said that Zheng Qingyuan looks cold on the surface, but she is actually a bit black-bellied inside. She is obviously demonstrating to me the original body. Qi Fimeng spread his hands and said, Fimeng, you are acting very professionally, but won't you get schizophrenia if you continue like this? Zhao Chen couldn't help but ask. This is the stage that must be experienced in practicing the great compassion and great mercy of Avalokitesvara Sutra. Qi Fimeng shook her head, unwilling to say more, and changed to talk about other things. I already know about the entrance to the secret passage provided by MOQIU. Although it may be against the 7 heroes of the South Desert, it is worth exploring. Why? Zhao Chen asked curiously. Although he had already decided to explore it, he still wanted to hear Qi Meng's reasons. It's very simple. Dunhuang has been in the world for hundreds of years. This area has been explored countless times by the Li family and major forces in the nearby states. In theory, there will be no undiscovered hidden oasis. The only possibility is that it has just emerged from the fog of history not long ago. And this situation is likely. Before she finished her words, Zhao Chen, who reacted, took over and said, "It is likely to be the collateral effect of one of our previous missions? Or what did Song Weiryu and the others who entered history do? Even if Song Weiryu and the other two interfered with history, it is impossible for them to superimpose the results of their interference on the present world." Qi Meng shook her head gently and said meaningfully, "At present, I'm afraid that only you and I can do this." In the tent of the Black Cloud Martial Arts School, Moqiu woke up suddenly, only to see that her pillow and bed had not changed, but the surroundings were no longer the foggy space before, but she was back in her tent, and there were bursts of noise in her ears, and the sky was bright. Was the previous transaction just a dream? Moqiu denied this idea as soon as she had it, because the ancient Aoshu that she had exchanged for everything was quietly placed in her arms. Really? It's true. It wasn't a dream. Moqiu's heart was excited, and then he remembered the information he had sold. He couldn't help but think secretly, I hope that the family of that adult will be interested in that secret oasis, and take away the treasure in advance, so that Miss Gong won't be harmed by him. In a restaurant in Dunhuang City, the second hero Ma Guangliang, with a shiny head and no hair, entered the private room with the telegram, and said to his brother who was sitting and drinking, "Brother." Fifth sister replied, "She will arrive in Dunhuang today. Update progress, 7/45. It seems that a few words are missing to 2000. What a loss." Chapter 128 Conflict. Black Wind Fort is located between Yumen and Dunhuang, with its back against a rare lake in the desert. It is vast and misty, covered with green grass and trees. It is a first-class prosperous place outside Yumen Pass. It is called Fort, but in fact it can be regarded as a small city, with a permanent population of about 20,000. In the evening of this day, as soon as Zhao Chen's caravan entered the territory of Black Wind Fort, water vapor hit them in the face, making the group of people who had been blown by the wind and sand for nearly 2 days feel as if their skin was moisturized. Although it is still dry compared to the inside of Yumen Pass, it is much better than the vast gravel along the way. Why should the Kyang flute blame the willows? The spring breeze does not pass through Yumen Pass. It's not just talk. Before Dunhuang and many oases appeared, there was really nothing west of Yumen Pass except the desert. TSK, I don't know how such a good place could be occupied by the Z family. Obviously, this family is very ordinary, and the strongest in the family only has the 9 orifice cultivation. Zhao Zan, the captain of the fire gun team, pointed to the fortress next to the lake. Inside, there were rows of houses, densely populated, and noisy. There were people dressed in central plains, people who looked like Sheikh Dunhuang girls with bright hats and dresses, and even bold and hot Taxi women. The strong atmosphere of the world made every traveler who came through the vast desert and suffered from desolation and boredom instantly return to the human world. Such a beautiful place is indeed not something that a 9 orifice cultivator can occupy. That's because the owner of the Black Wind Fort was originally Crazy Sanzi Bodu, who was ranked 10th on the human outstanding list. It's just that he went to Bingquan town before, and the traces of his existence were wiped out, which made the situation here seem unreasonable. But this unreasonableness will not last too long. When the surrounding forces realize that the Z family cannot occupy such a good piece of land alone, they will definitely reach out. Before that, it was reasonable to welcome the horse thief's temptation first. When Zhao Chen was thinking about how he, a horse thief, should investigate Black Wind Castle tonight, Zhao Zan, who thought he was quite interested in this place, raised his whip and introduced the current patriarch of the Z family. Z Shuai is a master who has opened the 9 orifices. He has a very good mad sand divine art. He once fought with the 7 heroes of the 7 heroes of the South Desert, the Snow Eagle Sword Feng Wanfeng, and was undefeated. In addition, this person has a wide range of friends and has a good relationship with several major horse bandit leaders. This may be the main reason why the Z family can stand here. but it's a bit forced to say this. After all, horse bandits are the kind of people who turn their faces and don't recognize people. They don't care about any friendship. I guess the Z family may have other hidden backers. While Zhao Chen was whispering about the details of Blackwind Castle, Feng Kang, Moqiu, Ning Meng and others had already entered the city, and the rest of the caravan members also entered one after another. However, because the fire gun team was too conspicuous, they were left outside the city to camp, which was just right for them to meet up. After entering the city gate, the worldly smell became stronger, with the smell of fumes, sweat, livestock, and food entering the nose. After consulting Zhao Chen arranged for lodging, while selling some of the transported wine to various wine shops in Blackwind Castle. Although the purpose of this business trip was mixed, making money could not be neglected. But just when he had made all the arrangements, a voice full of sarcasm suddenly came out. "Hey, isn't this Master Zhen Wu? How did you get to the point of helping a young boy?" Zhao Chen looked in the direction of the voice and saw a tall and burly man surrounded by a dozen people. He had a saber on his waist and his chest was bare, revealing thick black hair. Zhao Chen frowned upon seeing this and whispered to Zhao Chen, "This man is Earth Drilling Sandworm Liu Hong, who has the cultivation level of 4 apertures and is one of the horse bandits active near Dunhuang. He has been surrounded and suppressed by the alien camp several times, but he escaped with his superb sand escape technique. When I was doing smuggling business before, I had several conflicts with him and developed a great grudge against him." Smuggling business? My cheap dad is really not an easy person to deal with. Although Uncle Zhen certainly doesn't remember who he served before. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes, then took a step forward and said to the provocative man, "Are you Earth Drilling Sandworm Liu Hong? Where did you come from, you immature brat? Our eldest brother is called Earth Drilling Dragon." Before the big man could reply, a younger brother beside him scolded. "That's good." Zhao Chen nodded, then he aroused his true energy and used the water moon illusion body footwork. The whole person instantly crossed a distance of 7 or 8 meters, and then drew his sword and used the rising sun sword, the fastest move in the Chuyang sword technique, to wipe Liu Hong's neck. Liu Hong did not expect the opponent to suddenly attack. After all, this is the Blackwind Castle, and private fights are not allowed openly, so he almost failed to react in time. Fortunately, he is also a master of the 4 orifices. His eyesight and hearing have undergone a transformation, and his ability to capture movements is very strong. He turned his head and avoided the orange-red sword in Zhao Chen's hand. But the men around him who had scolded Zhao Chen were not so lucky. They were swept across the head by the sword and an ear was cut off. "Ah!" The man immediately covered one side of his head and screamed, and Liu Hong and his men also drew out their muskets or sabers after they reacted, as if they were about to engage in a fight. At this moment, the patrol team of Blackwind Fort heard the noise and rushed over. They were a group of more than 20 people, all equipped with long-barreled muskets, and surrounded everyone. The leader was a man in his 30s, with a dignified appearance and a righteous face. After looking around, he shouted, "Who is making trouble in my Blackwind Fort?" Upon hearing this, Liu Hong immediately pulled the injured subordinate over, pointed at Zhao Chen and complained, "Thank you, manager. It was this guy who started the trouble and broke the rules of your fort, injuring people in the street. Is that so?" The man nodded when he saw this, and without asking too many questions, he pointed directly at Zhao Chen and others and ordered his men, "Take them down." Moqiu, Feng Kang, Zhao Chen and others suddenly became nervous and looked at Zhao Chen with a bit of resentment, but they did not mean to surrender. But Zhao Chen was not in a hurry and took out a token directly from his arms. "This official, Zhao Chen, the 9th rank evil killing envoy. You are sheltering the leader of the horse bandits in Blackwind Castle. Do you want to rebel?" After the disappearance of Yan Wen, the examination envoy, Yan Hongxia became the actual head of the human Daoguan office, so she helped Zhao Chen to get the identity of a Daoist official before he set out. As soon as the token came out, the patrol team members of Blackwind Castle stopped their actions immediately and looked at the man in the lead. Although the Great Zaya Court relied on various cultivation sects and families to assist in the management of the local area, its own foundation was still strong and its majesty was not lost. They dared not detain a Daoist official in the street. What's more, this Taoist official had a conflict with the horse bandits. If the Taoist official was enforced according to private rules, I'm afraid that the masters of the Taoist office would come to the door soon. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129 Test. In this western region, the connection between local tyrants and horse bandits is a tacit understanding in the eyes of the court. If the Taoist officials want to catch a bandit, they will generally inform the sect or family that actually controls the place first, and the latter will most likely not choose to cover up. A surprise attack like Zhao Chen's is a bit ignorant of the rules. But even if they don't know the rules, the Z family of Blackwind Castle dare not really help the bandits deal with the Taoist officials in public, so the man leading the patrol team had to wave his hand to let his own fire gun team retreat after his face changed rapidly several times, and even surrounded Liu Hang and others who were drilling sandworms. Seeing the scene turned around, Liu Hang was shocked and angry, but adhering to the principle of a good man does not suffer a loss in front of him, he still planned to admit his defeat and leave. Of course, he must say a few harsh words before leaving. But at this moment, he was shocked to find that the orange-red longsword in the hands of the boy opposite had filled his vision again. Even if the Z family patrol team does not intervene, I have more than a dozen men under my command, with 7 or 8 muskets. How dare he do it? Exclamation mark. Looking for death. Liu Hang roared, holding his sword horizontally, and the strength formed by the true energy was released to block the oncoming sunset sword. But he lost the initiative in the end, and was too close to Zhao Chen. He was oppressed by the momentum of Zhao Chen, who used the token to repel the Z family patrol team, and was at a disadvantage in the spiritual confrontation. In other words, he did not understand what a spiritual battle was. He took advantage of the situation, and was easily suppressed by Zhao Chen's soul power. He did not use even 50% of his strength. Facing this oncoming sword, he did not even prepare to defend against the opponent's change of moves. Therefore, Zhao Chen's sunset sword flashed, and the sword light changed from rising sun to sunset, pointing directly at Liu Hang's lower abdomen. Liu Hang's eyes condensed, and finally recovered a little from the suppressed state. He knew that he had acted hastily, and fell into the opponent's trap, so he had to block the long sword with one hand. With a puff, he blocked the fatal blow at the cost of a broken hand, and quickly stepped back, trying to distance himself. Zhao Chen did not pursue them, because the other men finally came to their senses, and raised their muskets and sabers. If these people were farther away from Zhao Chen, he would have used the water moon illusion body to escape immediately, but unfortunately, they were within 3 feet of Zhao Chen. Within this range, all their actions were reflected in their external spiritual perception, and would also be subject to a certain degree of mental interference. Therefore, Zhao Chen strolled among the group of horse thieves very calmly, passing through flowers and trees, and did not make many moves, but every time the sword light flowed, a person fell down. Bang! After all, someone found an opportunity to shoot, but under the influence of the spirit and the huge pressure of momentum, the extremely nervous gunman pulled the trigger without even aiming. Such accuracy can be imagined, and he even killed a companion directly. Zhao Chen, who originally thought that he was faster than a bullet within 3 meters, but faster than a gunman, was also sweating coldly, because in his eyes, this kind of random shooting was more troublesome than the serious aiming. For example, this shot almost bounced off him, after passing through a horse bandit's body, and hitting the ground. It's hard to defend against stray bullets. Zhao Chen complained in his heart, and knocked down the last horse bandit brought by Liu Hang with a sword. Zhao Chen would naturally not be soft-hearted to these Jianghu people who licked blood on the knife edge, and took human lives lightly. Although he did not really hurt their lives, he also cut off his habitual palm, and destroyed the dantian of several people who achieved true ki. This was not Zhao Chen's womanly kindness, but because it was somewhat embarrassing for the Taoist official to kill so many people in the street, and it might bring trouble to Yan Hangsha. In fact, the end of the horse bandits who lost their military power was probably more tragic than death. At this time, while his men were holding Zhao Chen back, Liu Hong, who had lost one hand, had already prepared his famous life-saving spell, the sand escape technique. He formed a seal with one hand, quickly chanted a series of spells, and then his whole body quickly sank and merged into the sand under his feet. Liu Hong, will remember this grudge today. I will definitely take revenge next time we meet. In an instant, only Liu Hong's angry voice was left at the scene. Next time. There will be no next time. Zhao Chen raised the corner of his mouth, raised a revolver with his left hand, and pulled the trigger at the ground not far away. The next moment, the red cloud bullet in the revolver firing position was fired, turning into a dazzling red sword energy, breaking through the ground, and drilling into the sand. Ah! With a scream, streams of blood came out from the hole, cut by the sword energy, dyeing a large area of the ground red. At the same time, when Liu Hong was killed, a short and strong middle-aged man suddenly spat out a mouthful of dirty blood in the restaurant next to the street. If you look closely, you can find that his face is blue and his eyes seem to have a faint phosphorescence. Brother Z, are you okay? The man sitting opposite him asked. He was wearing a blood-red robe and had a feminine temperament. It's okay. It's just that I didn't learn the skills well, and I was attacked by the ghost puppet method. Fortunately, I disconnected in time. The short and strong middle-aged man called Brother Z waved his hand, and then said with some guilt, I failed to capture this caravan directly, and I failed Brother Zhuang's trust. His original plan was to control Liu Hong to provoke Zhao Chen's caravan. Regardless of whether the other party took action or not, he would let the patrol team intervene and capture everyone openly. Unfortunately, this plan was doomed to fail when Zhao Chen took out the Taoist official token, unless Black Wind Castle wanted to tear its face with the court. It is rumored that Yan Hongxia has a close relationship with Zhao Chen. Now it seems that what she said is true. Not only did she directly promote him to the 9th rank Evil Slayer, she also sealed the Red Emperor Yang Yuan sword key in a bullet and used it as a trump card for him. The man surnamed Zhuang, who was wearing a blood-red robe, sighed and continued, but it is not in vain. At least I have figured out Zhao Chen's strength and trump card. I will personally lead people to take them down in the second half of the night tonight. When the time comes, please cooperate with me to act out a play which can paralyze Zhao Chen and clear the suspicion afterwards. That's no problem. Your brother Zhuang's business is my business. After the man surnamed Z agreed happily, he asked curiously, I wonder what is in this caravan that makes you, Brother Zhuang, value it so much. My subordinate, Sand Snake Yi Liwang, has a grudge against Zhao Chen, so he is here to kill him. The man surnamed Zhuang replied indifferently, I see. I wish you success in advance. The man surnamed Z showed a look of realization, as if he really believed the other party's words. After the two drank a few more glasses of wine, they dispersed. When the man surnamed Zhuang in blood-stained clothes went downstairs, he suddenly turned his head and whispered to the air, keep a close eye on Tao Zhao, the gunsmith master in the caravan. We must get that thing tonight, and anyone who may have come into contact with that thing must be killed and silenced. Also, let another team exterminate the Z family after I take action, creating the illusion that they fled after looting the caravan. Yes. An illusory voice came to the ears of the man surnamed Zhuang from somewhere. At the same time, the short and strong man surnamed Z also ordered his men in the restaurant, keep an eye on the people of Blood Shadow. They are definitely planning something big this time. When they succeed, we will come to the rescue. On the street, Zhao Chen put away his revolver and long sword and bowed to the captain of the patrol team of the Z family amid the wailing of the bandits. I have finished enforcing the law. Please let the Z family clean up the mess. The captain of the Z family looked at the young man in front of him who seemed harmless, and then looked at the bandits rolling on the ground and crying. He couldn't help but swallow hard, his heart trembling, shock and fear. He never thought that Liu Hong, who was also a little famous in the desert, and his men could only hold on for a dozen breaths before they were all defeated by a young man with a sword. Even Liu Hong's famous skills didn't work in the end, and he was killed underground. Moreover, the young man in front of him looked like he was strolling in the garden, and it seemed that he didn't use his full strength at all. but his swordsmanship looks simple and direct. How did he do it? At this time, Zhao Chen looked meaningfully at a restaurant on the street, thinking to himself, Liu Hong was clearly controlled by someone to test or the strength of the caravan. The black silk thread extending from his head gathered on the restaurant. Chapter 130, Taking the Initiative. It turned out that thanks to the real vision he had experienced in advance, when the so-called drilling sandworm Liu Hong appeared, Zhao Chen saw the illusory black line on his head that others could not detect, and guessed that the other party was just a chess piece controlled by someone. Zhao Chen killed him as a Taoist official, with three main purposes. First, to directly destroy the plan of the person behind the scenes, take the initiative in his own hands, and take the opportunity to spy on the possible identity of the person behind the scenes. Second, it is to establish prestige, and to establish his own prestige by borrowing the life of a little-known horse thief leader. In this way, his own wine business will naturally have less unnecessary trouble. Third, it is to deliberately show some of his cards to the people behind the scenes, so that they will misjudge their own strength. After all, Zhao Chen and Qi Fimeng have many cards, and Yan Hangsha's sword energy is actually not ranked. From the results, in addition to achieving the purpose of establishing prestige, Zhao Chen can also judge that the Zi family of Black Wind Castle is likely to have a lot of malice towards his caravan. Even if the people who manipulated Liu Hong to test me are not from the Zi family, they are also related to them. This is because the prey has set its sights on me, the hunter first. Well, to use the words of someone in the previous life, the Zi family has already found a way to die. I just don't know what their purpose is. I don't think I'm hated by everyone yet, right? As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen put his hand on the hilt of the sword, walked slowly on the street filled with sunset, and returned to his own caravan. At this time, Qi Fimeng's voice came to his ears. The people in the restaurant have left. There are two people, one of whom is wearing a blood-stained robe, and is likely to be a master of magic power, so I didn't dare to get too close. The other one is most likely Zi Shuai, the current head of the Zi family in Black Wind Castle. He and the man in blood-colored robes are not of the same mind, and he even intends to reap the benefits. But what is certain is that they did come for our team, but it is unknown what their specific purpose is. When Zhao Chen attacked Liu Hong, Qi Fimeng, who had a very good understanding with him, had already sneaked into the restaurant with a toad-light ribbon to gather information according to what he had said in the voice transmission. At this time, although Zhao Chen could not see Qi Fimeng, he was sure that she was beside him, so he stretched out his left hand. Sure enough, a delicate and soft palm immediately clasped his hand. For us, Liu Hong's actions just now have already alarmed the enemy. If the sun was not about to set, it would be a normal choice for us to leave the city immediately and rush to the next post station. So if they really want to get something from our caravan, they will definitely act tonight, Zhao Chen said in his heart. Qi Fimeng nodded in agreement after sensing these words, and then asked, so, what are you going to do? Of course, we will strike first. Are we really going to wait for them to attack before we fight back? Zhao Chen smiled and continued in his heart, but just in case, Fimeng, please stay in the caravan, and I will go to the Zi family's fortress alone. Thinking of this, he paused for a moment before adding, as Guang Daoi. After the two of them exchanged a few simple words, they initially finalized the plan. At this time, Feng Kang, Moqiu and others finally came back to their senses, and looked at Zhao Chen with a little more complexity in their eyes. Feng Kang has always known that his junior brother is a seed of cultivation, but he never thought that he would be much worse than the other party before. After all, his family practiced the direct transmission of the Yuan sect, while his junior brother only practiced the secret records of Kigan and the 12 doors of the Golden Building, and Jade Chamber which the core mental method could not accurately interpret. But now it seems that he is outrageously wrong. A 4-orifice master, at least 3 key level masters, plus a dozen gunners. This configuration is enough to make some 7-orifice cultivators retreat, but they only lasted a dozen breaths in the hands of the junior brother. Although he knew that the junior brother must have deliberately created momentum, used it to suppress people, and dug loopholes in the enemy's heart, so that he could easily succeed. But knowing how to fight with Qi fight secretly with spirits, and use momentum is itself part of the strength of a master. Junior brother is probably able to compete with cultivators who have just completed the inner world, right? But he hasn't even opened his eyes yet. Feng Kang was secretly shocked and felt that if he didn't work harder, he would probably be left far behind by the junior brother. So in order not to fall behind, let's put down the poems and songs for now. Anyway, no matter how much I try, I can't write poems that will satisfy Miss Lin in a short time. Thinking of this, Feng Kang finally felt relieved. God knows how uncomfortable he was studying poems in this P1 full day. On the other side, MOQIU subconsciously reached out and touched the secret book of Yinshan Daoshu hidden in his chest. He could not help but look forward to the future when he could be as happy as Master Chen and get rid of the shadow of that person. She did not notice that her little apprentice Ningmeng had already drooled at Zhao Chen, and the red in her eyes became more vivid. Speaking of which, Ningmeng had been hiding from Zhao Chen all day, just because she was afraid that she could not suppress the impulse in her heart, but that feeling became more and more intense as time went by. She was now very worried about her willpower. There is no need to elaborate on the process of selling Bingquan wine to various wine shops. After Zhao Chen just established his prestige, no wine shop dared to refuse to accept it, and even offered a good price. As the wine was sold, Zhao Chen finally determined that this kind of real merchant's behavior was not useless for the mastery of the traveling merchant position, but it was almost negligible. Apart from other things, the previous transaction with MOQIU alone brought Zhao Chen an improvement that was equivalent to hundreds of such merchant trips. Acting like this isn't even as fast as practicing meditation seriously. Well, the alias of traveling merchant is deputy envoy of galaxy transportation. And if you want galaxy transportation, you must rely on the great sun star chariot. Just as I thought before, you have to sell the products approved by the great sun star chariot and make a profit from it. Zhao Chen, who finally had a more comprehensive understanding of the role of the position, sighed slightly, then entered the Dairi Xingcha, clicked on the jade book, spent 1000 star coins to exchange for the identity and destiny of Wang Daoyi, and blessed himself. Although 1000 star coins are quite expensive, in this state, Zhao Chen can use the purple light ring to borrow the power of supernatural powers at any time. This borrowed combat power is certainly not as good as directly exchanging for Wang Daoyi, but the cost of continuous combat is much cheaper. After making preparations, Zhao Chen nodded slightly to Qi Fimeng who was in the same room, then jumped out of the window of the hotel and went straight to the Z family castle. Update progress, 8/45. Chapter 131 Anger. Although the Z family's residence is called Blackwind Castle, it is actually composed of underground caves. Only a house was built at the entrance to cover it up. The passages between the underground caves are not only free of debris and clear at a glance, but also have many restrictions. It is extremely difficult for outsiders to sneak in without alerting anyone. Since the guards of the house outside are not strict, Zhao Chen easily found the location of the entrance to the underground cave and learned the basic situation from a servant. However, he was a little embarrassed about how to get in. Even if I use the toad light, it may be difficult to hide from those restrictions. Zhao Chen, who knocked the servant unconscious, was frowning and thinking about countermeasures when he suddenly smelled a little blood in his nose. He was slightly startled, and after careful search, he found that the smell came from the half-open entrance of the passage, so he quietly released his spiritual sense and looked inside. But what he saw almost made him vomit. I saw a young man sitting in the bloody background, holding a piece of ribs in his hand, chewing happily, not disliking the fishy smell on it. Next to the young man, there was a younger girl who was cutting the bloody meat with a knife. While eating in small bites, she complained, "Brother, I always feel that we shouldn't eat this kind of low quality stuff. I dreamed the day before yesterday that we were the real young masters and young ladies of Blackwind Castle." The young man focused on the skull in his hand and said without turning his head, "You also said that it was a dream. We were originally bastards, and we were allowed to enjoy blood food because we were taken in by the castle owner, not to become blood food. But these things that eat sweet potato rice all year round are really not delicious. Why do the children of the castle owner have monks to eat? I also want monks. No, martial artists are fine. The girl pouted her lips and showed a very cute expression. But such an expression was like a devil in Zhao Chen's eyes, because what she held in her hand was a human heart. According to what the girl said, the children of Lord Z also eat people. Are all members of the Z family bloodthirsty murderers? Although interests come first in many things, Zhao Chen also has a sense of righteous indignation and a bottom line that he can accept as a human being. Obviously, what the Z family members of Blackwind Castle did broke his bottom line. Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, by borrowing the power of Wang Daoi's magical power, I can completely clear out the people in several passages at the same time in an instant. And what's even better is that the restrictions in the passages may help me cover up the movement of the magical power and reduce unnecessary trouble. In this case, there is no need to sneak in. No, or to make a special sneak in. After all, killing everyone who sees me can also be considered a successful infiltration. With this thought, Zhao Chen no longer hesitated, and his mind boarded the Big Sun Star raft, using the identity of Wang Daoi as a medium, using the purple light ring to borrow his power. In an instant, Zhao Chen realized that his anger was even greater. He knew that this was a side effect of borrowing power, and Wang Daoi's temperament was affecting him. After all, this swordsman from the ancient Andong Protectorate was the kind of person who put loyalty first and hated evil as an enemy, so how could he tolerate such cannibalism? However, Zhao Chen did not resist this anger, but synchronized with Wang Daoi's belief, and then turned into a divine wind and rushed straight into the underground passage. Almost instantly, many restrictions were triggered at the same time. Some members of the Z family just wanted to check the situation, but they heard a whistling sound in their ears, and then they knew nothing. The boy and girl who were eating snacks at the entrance of the passage were the first to bear the brunt, and their sinful souls were completely melted in an instant. With the whistling of the divine wind, sweeping through one underground cave after another, the people of the Z family were completely in chaos. They knew that someone had broken into the Blackwind Castle, but they didn't know the specific situation, because there was no one to report. The head of the family, Zishuai, was sucking the brain of an enlightened monk to make a new ghost puppet, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by his subordinates who suddenly entered his retreat. The woman in his hand, who originally looked plump and healthy, withered in an instant, like a dehydrated mummy. You'd better have something important to do, otherwise you won't have to look for the next puppet material outside. Zishuai threw the mummy aside and said viciously to the housekeeper who made him fail. The housekeeper's face turned pale when he heard it, but he still hurriedly reported, "Master, someone broke into the fortress and has now reached the third defense circle. The Z family's underground fortress only has 5 defense circles in total." Zishuai frowned when he heard this, but he was not panicked. He asked in a serious tone, "How many people came? Which force are they from?" "No, I don't know." The housekeeper swallowed his saliva and stammered. "Don't know?" Zishuai stared at the housekeeper fiercely. "You've already broken through to the third circle, and you tell me you don't know?" The head of the family was obviously not tall, but the housekeeper felt that a terrifying figure was shrouding him, and there was a faint tiger roar in his ears. He knelt on the ground with a thump and said tremblingly, "I really don't know. Because no matter whether it is an open or secret sentry, no group of people send back a message." "What?" Zishuai's face changed when he heard this. He knew very well that the defense system of his fortress was so tight that it was difficult for a mana monk to prevent so many people from even sending back a message. In other words, the intruder was a supernatural power! Exclamation mark. Thinking of this, Zishuai didn't care about the housekeeper at all and ran straight to the corner of the retreat, turned the mechanism, opened the dark room, and prepared to escape from another passage. The power of supernatural powers is beyond human power. Even if there are more people on his side, it is useless. But at this moment, a gust of wind suddenly whistled in, and the housekeeper who was blocking the door was instantly torn into pieces by countless wind blades. His flesh, blood, bones, and even his soul were cut into dust and printed on the wall of the passage. from a real person, he instantly turned into a painting with his own flesh, blood, and soul as paint. Along the way, Zhao Chen didn't know how many such murals he had made, but he didn't have any pity or guilt, because these beasts deserved to die. Just looking at the piles of bones in the caves, Zhao Chen felt that it was a bargain for the Z family to die so quickly. No wonder Blackwind Castle has such a superior geographical environment, but the population has never increased. I'm afraid that many people have become food for this family. In the gust of wind, Zhao Chen looked at Zishuai who was looking at him in horror, and his eyes became colder and colder. Chapter 132 Harvest. Seeing the housekeeper who was full of energy just now being smashed and printed on the wall, Zishuai was so scared that he almost collapsed to the ground. Although he was insidious, cunning, cruel and vicious, he was never a man of strong will, and he didn't have much courage. If his brother Kuangshazi Bodu was here, he would definitely give it a try, even if he knew he couldn't win, but he didn't have such courage. What's more, Zishuai didn't even remember that he had a brother. At this moment, as if he had come into contact with the cold eyes in the wind, his knees softened immediately, and he knelt down, wanting to beg for mercy. But before he could say anything, Zishuai felt a sharp pain in his head, and then lost consciousness. At the same time, Zhao Chen also emerged from the gust of wind, walked a few steps to the side of the unconscious short and strong middle-aged man, and muttered, as the leader of a faction, "You don't even have a protective magic weapon. You are too poor." Of course, despite muttering, Zhao Chen quickly searched his body, but unfortunately he only found a revolver with exquisite shape and golden body. Famous gun, Scorching Sun, made by Danhuang gun casting master Tao Zhao. The bullets fired by this gun are extremely restrained against ghosts and spirits. If the user's true ki is extremely positive and yang, the power of this gun can be increased by 30%. After taking a peek at Xingcha's evaluation of the revolver, Zhao Chen was surprised to find that this Scorching Sun was actually from the same series as the Silver Moon, both of which were made by Master Tao Zhao, who was taking advantage of his caravan. After putting away the revolver, that looked high-end at first glance, Zhao Chen took out the mind control ring and prepared the Kai-Z mind control method. The reason why he temporarily spared Zishuai's life was that he wanted to squeeze benefits from him, otherwise he would lose a lot. You know, he destroyed the entire Z family tonight with great force. Although it seemed to be easy, he was actually just burning money. So at least he had to make back his investment, right? As a series of hand seals were formed, Zhao Chen hit an illusory word Kai into Zishuai's forehead. Zhao Chen thought that the head of the Z family, as an inorifice cultivator, would put up a fierce resistance, but who would have thought that his willpower was much weaker than MOQIU's, and he was easily controlled. Seeing Zishuai slowly opening his eyes and looking at him with lifeless eyes, Zhao Chen said carefully, "Take me to the place where the Z family collects cultivation books and treasures." Okay. Zishuai agreed readily without any hesitation, then stood up and led Zhao Chen into the secret passage he had just opened. Zhao Chen was speechless about Zishuai's generosity, but he immediately realized that the current head of the Z family was just a replacement after the world line was corrected after the Chijin area fell into the historical fog. Although he remembered that he was the head of the Z family, he probably didn't have such a deep impression in his subconscious mind, and didn't really regard the things of the Z family as his own, so he agreed so readily. After turning several corners in the passage, Zhao Chen followed Zishuai to a secret door, watched him take out the key, and opened the Z family's treasure house. The first thing that caught his eye was a few boxes of jewels, dazzling and sparkling, but Zhao Chen just glanced at them and skipped them, turning his attention to the bookshelf on the side. However, he did not rush to take them, but controlled Zishuai to move the classics and treasures here to the previous room one by one, and then he looked at and sorted them out in different categories. Since the Z family had secretly harmed many cultivators, they had collected quite a few classics, but most of them were just key and orifice training methods, which were no longer valued by Zhao Chen, so they were directly sold to Xingcha in exchange for star coins. In the end, only 5 books caught Zhao Chen's eye. One of them was the Z family's family inherited method Bone Erosion Blackwind Gong, which was a classic that could be practiced to the perfection of the Gangsha realm. It also came with 12 life-defining spells such as Black Wind Escape Method, Poison Mist Technique, and Demon Wind Soul Seizing, which was considered a pretty good inheritance. Moreover, although the Ganki and evil spirits required to practice this method were relatively dark, it was not too cruel, and was a serious method. Dairi Xingcha gave a recycling price of 2,900, which was much higher than Chidi Yangyuan sword art. Of course, this does not mean that the erosion of bone black wind art is better than the Red Emperor Yangyuan sword art, but it comes with more spells, so it is more valuable. The second is a Falling Soul Purple Flute. This was originally one of the Gangsha realm skills of the Cui family, a prominent family in Wuzhou. Its status is equivalent to any of the 5 emperors' true sword art of the Li family. Somehow it fell into the hands of the Z family. The natal spell of the same name cultivated with this skill is a sound skill that specializes in the soul. It is extremely difficult to defend, and is also well known in the martial arts world. The Big Sun Star Chariot is estimated to be worth 2,100 star coins, the same as the price of Red Emperor Yangyuan sword key. The third is a separate spell called Yeezy Hint Method, which is one of the 12 Heart Light methods. It can hint the other party in daily life through specific actions, specific language and specific media, so that they will unconsciously follow their own ideas. This method seems not as good as the Kai-Z Control Heart method, but it is more concealed, and the conditions for use are more relaxed. Unlike the Kai-Z Control Heart method, it is necessary to seize the enemy's psychological loopholes, and can only be used after the enemy loses the ability to move. Fourth, it is the complete copy of the secret record of the Curse of Zhao that Zhao Chen originally obtained. It records many spells that pray to Zhao for power. Each of them is extremely powerful, but also extremely dangerous. If you are not careful, you will be assimilated by Zhao's spirit and become a monster. The most powerful spell in this secret record can even summon a Dark Zone level clone of Zhao to come. It can be said that this is a Dark Zone level method. In addition to the sealed magic weapon Bingalan sword, it was the first time that Zhao Chen saw such a high level thing, and as expected, Xingcha directly gave a recycling price of 18,000. This secret record of the Curse of Zhao alone has paid off. After sighing in his heart, Zhao Chen did not look at the secret record in his hand, but instead set his sights on the technique that turned the Z family into the man-eating evil ghosts they are today. At the same time, it is also the most valuable classic of the Z family, the Four Saints' wonderful scripture of Zhuanshenyanxiangdi. The name sounds fairy-like, but in fact it is an out-and-out evil scripture written in the language of the Great Dao. Zhao Chen just flipped through a few pages and felt that his spirit was being eroded. If it were not for the magical power of Wang Daoi at this time, he would probably have been polluted by the source of this technique. The Four Saints' wonderful scripture of Zhuanshenyanxiangdi. No, it should be called the Four Evil Scriptures of Attracting Disasters and Inducing Evil. The chapter was blocked before noon. I was busy revising and unblocking it in the afternoon, which resulted in a late update. Chapter 133 Blood Shadow. After glancing at the official name given by Dairi Xingcha to this scripture, written in Dadao characters, Zhao Chen's mind returned to reality. This is probably the core skill of Zijiang Tang. Although it only has the part below Dang Zuan, the price offered by Xingcha is still as high as 19,000 star coins. Although I had some guesses when cleaning up the garbage in Black Wind Castle, it is now basically certain that the Z family is the base of Zijiang Tang in Human County, and its person in charge should be Kuang Shazi Bodu, who was ranked 10th on the original Human Renji list. And the series of changes in Bingquan Town and even the Chijin area are most likely caused by Zibodu. Although Zibodu, the person in charge of Zijiang Tang, was also arranged by the real culprit evil god Song Wuyuru, he is most likely the direct person responsible for the incident. He is probably the biggest enemy of the original owner. Well, from the memory of the bear I captured before, I already know that his direct superior is a mysterious man called Tiger. Zibodu. Is Bodu not another name for tiger? I just made the connection now. Combined with Fang Zu's memory blind box that I redeemed and read whenever I had time these days, the context of the matter is roughly clear. It's nothing more than Fang Zuzi found a relic in Chijin Mountain and dug out a lot of treasures, but when he took it to Human to sell, he revealed traces and was spotted by Zibodu, who followed him to Bingquan Town, leading to a series of subsequent events. And all of this is a story written by Song Wuyuru at the level of fate with his great supernatural power of Yanwanhe, Fu Ke Kansheng. The treasure in that Chijin mountain is likely not real, or half true and half false, but it must contain means to trigger the historical fog. The purpose is to trap the Li family's Dunkso and real person who came to investigate the matter. The 4 evil halls that were lured into the game, the Xingyang temple that was unlucky enough to be caught, the Li family, and even Sister Hangsha and I were all props used by Song Wuyuru to make the story more realistic. What a big deal. However, Song Wuyuru can't get involved in the special mission 3 months later. My main enemy is probably this crazy Sanzi Bodu. Well, although he is only a cultivator in the Gangsha realm, he has 2 Taoist books related to high-level demons, the 4 evil scriptures of inviting disasters and the secret records of the curse of Jiaozi, and the means he can use are definitely not simple. In addition, what role did the master play in this? In such a high-end game, he, a cultivator whose magic power has been abolished, can't participate at all, even if he may have had supernatural powers in the past? As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen looked at Zishuai, whose eyes were empty, and asked carefully, "Where did you get that method of manipulating others?" Zishuai seemed to be very distressed when he heard this, and then he said uncertainly, "I couldn't understand the content of the mysterious Heaven Yang D4 Saints' wonderful scripture, so I created it myself. Well, I remember that I created a method called the Divine Tiger Commands Ghosts to save people up a scripture. The method you created yourself? You are a waste with a weak will, mixed soul power, and low inspiration, that even demons are too lazy to pollute you. How can you create a method by interpreting the Dao text? This so-called the Divine Tiger Commands Ghosts to save people up a scripture is most likely a method created by Zibodu, but only when his existence disappeared. It was claimed by Zishuai, although the latter himself is not sure in his subconscious. Thinking of this, Zhao Chen directly ordered, "Write out the Divine Tiger Commanding Ghosts to save people from memory." Since it is not included in the treasure pavilion, it means that this technique should be passed down orally. Yes. Zishuai still did not have a strong desire to resist, and took out a pen and paper to start writing. Zhao Chen also took this opportunity to check the treasures collected by the Z family. The so-called treasures are not those boxes of gold, silver and jewelry. Those things look dazzling, but they are of no use to Zhao Chen, and he can't estimate the price with his knowledge, so he plans to take them back to Yanhangsha for processing. There are actually only 3 items that can be called treasures, 2 magic tools, and 1 material containing Ganki. The reason why there are so few, Zhao Chen guessed that it might be because Zibodu took all the powerful treasures of the Z family to Bingquan Town, and now the ones in Blackwind Castle are just the scraps that the other party doesn't need. Among the 2 magic tools, one of them is a jade flute with a green light flowing, attracting people's attention. It is probably the magic weapon of the owner of the falling soul purple flute who was harmed by the Z family. I just don't know if carrying this thing will cause trouble. After all, the Cui family of Weizhou is also a prominent family, and its strength is stronger than the Li family. The other is a white long skirt, simple in shape, but its surface seems to be embellished with ice crystals, which looks extremely beautiful. This is a mysterious ice feather clothes, which can use the mysterious ice shield and ice wing spells after wearing it. It is also a fine product among the Gangsha magic weapons. I remember Fei Meng always said that every time she completed a task, she would destroy a piece of clothing. This feather clothing can be given to her as a gift. It's similar to the jade flute. This thing is probably stolen goods, which may cause unnecessary trouble. After muttering a few words in his heart, Zhao Chen's eyes fell on the last material again. A drop of solidified nectar formed by the Rinshuyan Gang. It's very rare. However, this is a good material for practicing the Black Emperor's blood-passing sword key. Well, I'm afraid that Sister Hangsha will need to help with the aftermath here. I can give this thing to her in the name of the Master of the Star Chariot as a reward. After all, it will be good for me if she can cultivate the Black Emperor's blood-passing sword key earlier, right? My true key is about to be perfect. The refining acupoint stage requires a true key to be cultivated into 5 changes. Now there is only one red emperor's nourishing essence. It's too slow to rely on myself. When Zhao Chen's wishful thinking was going on, Zishuai finally finished writing the content of the Divine Tiger commanding ghosts to save people. Zhao Chen took it and was about to flip through it, but suddenly heard a noise coming from the underground entrance of the Black Wind Fort. He quickly logged into the account of Wang Daoi and checked with the help of the divine sense of the supernatural cultivator. He found that at least more than 10 people had come, and each of them was fully armed with guns and live ammunition. They are not good people. Zhao Chen frowned and asked Zishuai, who do you think would come to your Blackwind Castle at this time? Zishuai thought for a moment and replied, it should be someone from Blood Shadow. I was supposed to cooperate with their actions at this time, but now that I have not taken any action, it may have aroused his suspicion. Blood Shadow? Cooperate with him for what? Lure Zhao Chen from the caravan in the name of making amends, and then ambush and kill him. Update progress, 9/45. Chapter 134 Tao Zhao. Blood Shadow. Before setting off from Human, Yan Hongxia had introduced several powerful horse thieves in the desert, and the Blood Shadow group was one of them. Its leader, Blood Shadow Zhuang Bufan, was not included in the Human outstanding people list because of his unknown origin, but his strength had undoubtedly reached the level of Gangsha. His blood shadow magic could gather and disperse, and Yan Hongxia believed that she could not beat him. But why would such a person bother me, a junior who had just entered the martial arts world? Thinking so in his heart, Zhao Chen asked Zishuai. Zishuai answered in a flat voice. Blood Shadow said that he was to help the new member of his team, Sand Snake Yi Liwen, to avenge, but I don't believe a word of it. He must have other plans. I'm afraid there is something good hidden in that Zhao Chen's caravan. Sand Snake Yi Liwen? This is also an old friend of Bingquan Town. At the master's farewell banquet, I heard that he was out, but I didn't expect that he escaped. Is this transferring his hatred for his master to me? As his thoughts raced, Zhao Chen actually felt that things had changed, even though he had only been in this world for less than a month. As for what the real goal of Blood Shadow Zhuang Bufan was, Zhao Chen was too lazy to guess. After all, both he and Miss Qi were full of secrets, and there were too many possibilities. While the two were talking, the group of fully armed horse thieves had already penetrated deep into the underground fortress and discovered many paintings left by Zhao Chen. Although the leader of this group was not Blood Shadow himself, he was also an experienced old thief. Seeing that the situation had changed, he immediately issued an order to retreat. But how could Zhao Chen let them escape? Spreading soil and raising dust, the world changes, and the shadowless and invisible yellow sand swirls. In an instant, the divine wind rose again, and the whistling sound resounded through every passage of the Black Wind Fort, swallowing every horse thief who broke in. Seeing their companions being torn apart by the strong wind one by one, the remaining horse thieves could no longer suppress the fear in their hearts, and picked up various types of muskets and fired indiscriminately. But their dying struggles had no effect on Zhao Chen, who had turned into a gust of wind, and instead killed many of his own men. Magic power. The leader of the group of horse thieves was obviously very knowledgeable. After seeing this situation, he no longer cared about his men and immediately activated his own life magic, set up a yellow wind, and wanted to escape in the chaos. However, his Yinsha magic was no match for the 6th grade magical power of transformation divine wind escape. Before he escaped far, his yellow wind was caught up and then tied up tightly by the rope, transformed by the gust of wind. Zhao Chen wanted to capture this man and interrogate him for information, but who would have thought that the next moment, the other party's whole body seemed to melt suddenly, turning into streams of sticky liquid and spreading on the ground of the passage. What is this? Slime. It seems to have completely lost its vitality. Seeing this, Zhao Chen was a little stunned. It took a long time for him to come back to his senses, and then turned his head to look at the other horse thieves who had not been torn apart by the divine wind. As a result, 1/3 of the surviving bandits had also turned into a state similar to slime. Zhao Chen thought about it, and after killing a few surviving bandits, he concentrated on logging into the Dairi crossing chat and wanted to use the recycling system to see what these slimes were. The residue of the black blood clone, which lost its vitality due to the death of the main body, is recycled by the crossing chaff for 30 star coins. The residue of the black blood clone. The main body died. In other words, these things are most likely the clones of that blood shadow Zhuang Bufan. And because Zhuang Bufan died suddenly, they became like this? It seems that blood shadow went to attack the caravan station in person, and was solved so quickly. Did Fei Meng call Zheng Qingyan back? That's right. Traveling at night is a taboo for ordinary people, but not for the cultivators with magical powers. Time went back to a few minutes ago, when Zhao Chen just discovered that an uninvited guest had broken into the Blackwind Castle. Fei Meng, who stayed at the hotel, also keenly noticed that many people had come to the nearby streets, seemingly plotting something bad. But she was not panicked at all, because the Sakura Dragon Fairy Zheng Qingyan was already standing in the night sky, overlooking all the sneaky things in the city. In the hotel, Tao Zhao, the Dunhuang gun casting master who had obtained a single room, suddenly opened his eyes. He got out of bed silently, quietly opened a corner of the curtain, looked out for a few times, and then, as expected, spied on a few thieves who were not hiding very well. Sure enough, they chased me. Tao Zhao's heart was full of annoyance and regret. He shouldn't have taken on the task of making a fire gun from peony at the gathering, otherwise he wouldn't have been tricked by that stinky woman, leaving a hot potato in his hands, and had to run back to Dunhuang. Unfortunately, even if I hand over that thing, I will most likely be silenced. Well, as long as I get to Dunhuang and hand this thing over to that adult, my safety will be guaranteed. Thinking of this, Tao Zhao simply packed up his things, gently pushed open the door, and ran to the kitchen. If he remembered correctly, there was a secret passage under the kitchen of this hotel that led directly to the outside of the city. Although it was a bit dangerous to travel at night, it was better than being caught. It's a pity for this caravan, and a pity for the Golden Art Martial Arts School and the Black Cloud Martial Arts School. After sighing, Tao Zhao, who arrived at the kitchen, had already found the mechanism of the secret passage, and was about to turn it. But at this moment, a musket was pressed against his temple. Don't move. A pleasant female voice sounded beside him. Impossible. When? Tao Zhao was startled when he heard this. After all, he didn't notice it until the muzzle touched his skin. You know, although he is not very good at fighting, he is also a master with 9 orifices. It is impossible for ordinary mana to approach him so silently. Although he was wearing a protective magic weapon, Tao Zhao did not dare to move at all, because his intuition told him that his self-defense methods would not work on the woman beside him. I will give you that thing and swear not to tell anyone. Can you let me go? While Tao Zhao begged, he secretly prepared a means of mutual destruction in order to survive. But who would have thought that the woman behind him asked curiously, what is it? Huh? You don't know? Tao Zhao also came to his senses. Just as he was about to turn his head, a strong true energy invaded his meridians, not only blocking his ability to move, but also forcing him to interrupt the means he had prepared. Isn't this the maid who stays with Zhao Chen in the carriage every day? She is also a master? Exclamation mark. It was not until this time that Tao Zhao could see the face of the woman beside him. He was horrified and said quickly, enemy surrounded us. They can't be sure whether you have seen that thing, so they will definitely try to silence you. Only by cooperating can we survive this crisis. He was a good speaker and told several lips and teeth stories in one breath, just to impress Fei Meng and let him go. But Fei Meng just looked at him with a smile, then pointed out the window, raised the corner of her mouth and said, the powerful enemy you mentioned, is that coke? Coal? Before Tao Zhao could understand what she meant by this, a flash of lightning split the night sky. Chapter 135 Relationship. The sword leads the silver snake down from the sky, and the cloud presses the thunder beast into the mortal world. At this time, the sky above the Blackwind Castle had already gathered dark clouds and green thunder intertwined. The beautiful fairy standing in the air gently pointed her long sword downwards. Boom. One after another, green thunderbolts as thick as buckets fell down mercilessly, hitting the bandits ambushing around the streets. With the explosion of green thunder, most of the thieves turned into charcoal without even a groan. A few people who noticed something was wrong offered their own life-saving talismans and magic tools in an attempt to resist, but it was also useless. They were instantly pierced by the Limu Shen Lei and died on the spot. Among them, a man wearing a blood-colored robe and a feminine temperament suddenly roared, and 2 blood-colored wings suddenly grew on his back, and then soared into the sky, trying to escape. But at this time, a series of blow lightnings gathered and struck him continuously, striking the place where he was standing before, and striking the blood that was scattered because of his injury. In just a few seconds, the man who turned into charcoal fell from the sky, fell to the ground with a plop, and turned into dust. Tao Zhao, the master of gun casting in the hotel, stared at the scene in front of him blankly, as if he was still trapped in an illusion. Dozens of fully armed horse bandits, including a cultivator who was also considered a master in the Gangsha realm, just disappeared like this. Such strength has far exceeded his cognition, and he only feels that he is extremely small under such heavenly power. Is there any real person who took action? Tao Zhao looked at Qi Meng, who was still smiling, and asked stutteringly, real person? This is just a magical power, which is far inferior to the means of a real person. Dongsun. Qi Meng smiled, and shook his head. Magic power? Is the magical power so strong? It must be a lie. Tao Zhao looked at the piles of ashes on the street, and swallowed his saliva. He had indeed never really seen the supernatural power in action, but he was familiar with Manna and Gangsha monks, so he took it for granted that, since the supernatural power was still within the 5th realm of Tongsun, no matter how strong it was, it would definitely be limited. But now it seems that the supernatural power and the previous realm are 2 completely different concepts. Although the thunder spells used by the Gangsha realm are also very powerful, they will never give people the feeling that they are completely irresistible and defenseless. Just looking at it will make your heart tremble. This is the difference in level. The supernatural power has already touched the surface of the laws of heaven and earth. In takes his words, it has initially possessed the power of authority. Of course, Tao Zhao did not understand this. He only felt that it was ridiculous to suggest hunting the other party's shadow while Song Weiru was injured during the Xiaokangshan gathering. Such a being, even if it is really seriously injured, I'm afraid that it can also destroy all the monks below the supernatural power with one blow. On the other side, Qi Meng calmly conducted a ceremony to pray for the reincarnation of the horse thieves who were swept away by thunder, and sent the remaining souls into the mouth of the Bodhisattva. However, Tao Zhao was restrained, and his vision was limited, so he did not see the scene. After the salvation was completely completed, Qi Meng turned around again, packed up the things, and said casually, the one who made the move was Zheng Qingyan, the Sakura dragon fairy of the Zheng family in Taizhou. She is a prodigy of aristocratic family. This identity is enough to protect you. So, tell me, what did you take that was targeted by this group of horse thieves, and almost implicated our caravan? Almost implicated. Tao Zhao was silent for a few seconds, and then said with emotion, I didn't expect that you could make a prodigy of aristocratic family make a move. In this case, handing the things over to you is indeed the best choice. Qi Meng deliberately waved his hand at this time, smiled and said, why do I have the ability to invite a girl from aristocratic family? Fairy Zheng will help not for me, but for Master Zhao Chen. Zhao Chen. Isn't he close to Yan Hangsha? He actually provoked a prodigy of aristocratic family at the same time. And the little girl in front of him, whose strength is equally unfathomable, seems to be with him. This young man is really capable. Tao Zhao took a breath of cold air when he heard this. At this time, people in the hotel and other nearby buildings were also awakened by the thunder and turned on the lights to check the situation. However, because it was dark, the dark clouds gathered by Zheng Qingyan just now dropped rain, washing away the traces on the street, so no one noticed anything wrong. But since someone had gotten up to go to the bathroom, it was not suitable to talk in the kitchen. Qi Meng was about to put it into Zheng Qingyan's bubble space, but suddenly a smile appeared on her face. Because Zhao Chen is back. In the room completely covered by the bubble, Zhao Chen and Qi Meng through Zishuai, who was in the state of Kaizi control heart method, and Tao Zhao, who was banned from moving, aside and whispered to each other first. Of course, in Tao Zhao's eyes, there were 3 people, Zhao Chen, Qi Meng, and Zheng Qingyan. Zhao Chen first gave a brief introduction of what happened in the Black Wind Castle, and finally said, "This is the general situation on my side. Those so-called residues of the Black Blood clone in the end were caused by you, right?" Qi Meng did not answer, but Zheng Qingyan said with some guilt Zhuang Bufan should have practiced the Blood Demon Sect's core skill Blood Shadow Divine Art in the past. The Black Blood Clone Technique and Blood Drop Rebirth Technique are both top-notch life-saving spells. The combination of the two can even create a second-grade magical power Blood Demon Immortal body. So, in order to prevent him from escaping, I didn't dare to hold back, and destroyed his soul core in one fell swoop. Blood Demon Sect, Yin Demon Sect, Bone Demon Sect, and Sky Demon Sect are collectively known as the four great demon sects. They have existed since ancient times. It is rumored that they are somewhat related to the Taishi Daojin, who is as famous as the Taichi Daojin. But at the end of ancient times, after the disappearance of Taishi Daojin, various forces began to encircle and suppress the four great demon sects, and they were not completely eradicated until 1,000 years ago. However, the skills of the four great demon sects were also scattered, and fell into the hands of many forces and independent cultivators. For example, the 6th grade magical power soul-devouring Yin Wind obtained by the Li family was inherited by the outer disciples of the Yin Demon Sect. It doesn't matter. Even if we don't know why he attacked us, it doesn't matter. Zhao Chen didn't care about it. He waved his hand, then pointed at Tao Zhao on the side and asked, "What's the matter with this guy? He is the real target of the Blood Shadow group." Qi Meng responded with a smile, took out a jade slip from his pocket, and continued, "It's also a coincidence. Do you know what is recorded in it?" "What?" Zhao Chen frowned and asked. "It's a reply from a formation master to Ma Guangming, the Sun Sword, and the methods to break various restrictions in the secret oasis west of Dunhuang. The heroes of the 7 heroes of the South Desert are actually closely related to bandits like Blood Shadow. TSK. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136 Transaction. Zhao Chen was not surprised that the hero and the bandits colluded with each other. After all, he came from the information age. What kind of weird things had he not heard of? This was relatively normal. At least this Blood Shadow was not the hero's vest. Think about it carefully. Every time the Ma brothers acted chivalrous and defeated a bandit, the Blood Shadow group seemed to take the opportunity to grow stronger. They should have been a group for a long time. Qi Meng handed the jade slip to Zhao Chen and said, "Jade slips are often used by cultivators to record information, but the disadvantage is that only those who have built a spiritual platform and cultivated spiritual consciousness can write the content. However, the requirements for reading are not so high as long as the spiritual sense can be projected." Zhao Chen extended his spiritual sense and read the contents of the jade slip while shaking his head and said, "Ma Guangming doesn't know that his secrets were leaked by his illegitimate daughter's shared vision, and he can entrust Blood Shadow Zhuang Bufan to handle such a confidential matter, which shows that the relationship between them is probably closer than we imagined." While speaking, Zhao Chen also roughly browsed the contents of the letter in the jade slip. In addition to some methods of breaking the prohibitions, there were more exhortations from the formation master to the Ma brothers. He advised them not to rashly step into the newly appeared secret oasis, because even with the help of the Eye of Breaking delusion, it was still full of dangers. It was best to be submissive to the family and find the family's magical monks to go together. At the end, the formation master also mentioned that he would bring a purple ribbon robe magic weapon to Ma Guangming along with the letter, to ensure his safety when exploring the secret oasis. Purple ribbon robe. So the purple ribbon robe that I bought from Peony is very likely the one that the formation master brought to Ma Guangming. Although I had guessed that the origin of this purple ribbon robe was problematic, I didn't expect that it was related to Ma Guangming after a lot of twists and turns. I just don't know where the Ma brothers came from. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense and asked carefully, Do the heroes Ma Guangming and Ma Guangliang, the second heroes of the 7 heroes of the South Desert, have families behind them? After all, the human outstanding people list introduced them as loose cultivators. The two have a good inheritance, and there must be a certain force behind them, and the scale is probably not small. After all, ordinary families can't afford to support a formation master. But judging from the content of the letter, the two should have fallen out with their families, so they came to Ganzhou to become knights. Qi Fimeng said thoughtfully. Does the Zheng family's intelligence network in Ganzhou have any news about this? Zhao Chen looked at Zheng Qingyan, who was sitting upright. After all, there were outsiders present, and he had to try his best to cooperate with Miss Qi's performance. The Zheng family's intelligence agency in Ganzhou generally does not include people and things involving supernatural powers. Zheng Qingyan said slowly, after listening to Zhao Chen's words. Well. Zhao Chen nodded helplessly, then looked at the gun-casting Master Tao Zhao on the side, and asked directly, Master Tao, how did you get this jade slip? At the same time, Zheng Qingyan also timely released the sound barrier between the 3 people and Tao Zhao. Seeing the question, the grey-haired Tao Zhao showed an ugly expression and said angrily, I was cheated by a woman named Peony. It was indeed Peony. Did she kill the messenger sent by the formation master, to Sun Sword Ma Guangming? But such an important magic weapon and jade slip, the strength of the person who sent the letter should not be too weak. Who is Peony? How did she cheat you? Zhao Chen asked calmly. Seeing that the Zheng family's genius was indeed obedient to Zhao Chen, Tao Zhao finally put aside some of his worries. After all, with the support of a noble girl, the young man in front of him should not kill him, just because of the things in the secret oasis. So he organized his words and replied, Peony is a member of a cultivator gathering I attended. She has a strength of about the 1st to 3rd level of magic power and a theft type of innate spell. She usually sells stolen goods at gatherings. During a previous gathering, she asked me to customize a musket, saying that she would provide the materials and drawings herself, and she bargained with me for a while, so I believed her. When we arrived at the place where we agreed to get the materials and drawings, she left this jade slip there, and it also attracted the pursuit of Blood Shadow. After reading the contents of the jade slip, I realized that I had been fooled, but it was too late. At that time, even if I put down the jade slip, I would most likely be killed. Fortunately, Blood Shadow Zhuang Bufan was not there at the time, which gave me the opportunity to escape and join your caravan. I have an old relationship with Dunhuang's Iron Sword General Lu Qi. Although he is old and a prisoner, his perfect cultivation of Gangsha is enough to protect my safety, as long as I successfully arrive in Dunhuang. So that's it. I have to say that Peony is really a pit. In addition, the purple ribbon robe and this jade slip were both stolen by her. That's why they attracted the pursuit of Blood Shadow, and finally brought trouble to others. After sighing a few words in his heart, Zhao Chen asked in surprise, how do you know that my caravan can send you safely to Dunhuang? How could I know that you, a pretty boy, are so powerful that you can coax a girl from a noble family with supernatural powers to be so obedient? While Tao Zhao was complaining in his heart, he replied helplessly on the surface, the pursuers were behind me, and I had no choice at the time. And Zhao Zhen's fire gun team is known as an elite, and it is very difficult for the Blood Shadow group to take it head on. I'm afraid they will suffer huge losses before they can succeed. It turns out that I made the right bet. They really didn't choose to attack in the desert, but in Black Wine Fort where the fire gun team was not allowed to enter the city. Is Uncle Zhen's fire gun team so famous? My cheap father seems to have a way of training soldiers. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen was about to ask about the information about Blood Shadow again, but heard Qi Fimeng add, Blood Shadow didn't attack the caravan in the desert, mainly because they were not sure of annihilating us, and worried that the information about the entrance to the secret oasis would be leaked. That's why they set a trap in Black Wine Fort, waiting for us to fall into it. Unfortunately, you got the upper hand. Zhao Chen was stunned at first, then he thought of something, and said in surprise, Fimeng, did you take the soul of Blood Shadow Zhuang Bufan? In this way, won't we be able to harvest another wave of star coins? Qi Fimeng glanced at him, shook his head slightly and said, it's just a remnant soul. His soul core was destroyed by the Yimu Shenloi, and the part about cultivation must be gone, and even the memory is only a relatively deep one. So, Zhao Chen felt a little regretful, but still asked Fei-Meng to hand over the ownership of the remnant soul to him, and then sold it to Xingcha. Unfortunately, as Fei-Meng said, the valuable part had been destroyed, leaving only the memory blind box waiting for Zhao Chen to draw. On the other side, Cao Zhao saw that the boy and girl in front of him made a transaction involving souls, while chatting and laughing. He was so scared that he dared not breathe, and tried hard to reduce his presence. But the seemingly harmless boy still looked over, and said with a smile, "Master Tao, let's make a deal. I'll help you solve the trouble behind Blood Shadow, and you swear to sell yourself to my lord for 3 years. That's fair, right?" Update progress, 10/45. Chapter 137. The Ma Brothers. Cao Zhao's heart suddenly sank when he heard what Zhao Chen said. Even though he was just an independent cultivator, he knew how dangerous it was to establish a connection with an unknown high-level being. He knew that once he agreed, he would step into an unpredictable fate from then on, and it was very likely that he would have a very tragic ending. But just as many independent cultivators would not care about using evil materials to refine the acupoints, for Cao Zhao at this time, not agreeing was not a matter of possibly having a tragic ending, but that he would be silenced immediately. What's more, if you think in a positive way, the person who believes in the master mentioned by the young man in front of him may also be the genius of the Zheng family. She doesn't seem to have any problems, so even if I sell myself for a few years, it shouldn't be a big deal, right? With a little trepidation, a little worry, a little expectation and a little hope, Cao Zhao took a deep breath and said solemnly, "I'm willing to dedicate this body to the master for 3 years." Hearing this, Zhao Chen, who successfully obtained the other party's ownership, showed a satisfied smile and nodded. "Very good, the master has confirmed your loyalty and decided to reward you." As he said, he took out a pen and paper and wrote down the names of 3 or 4 gangsha techniques, handed them to Cao Zhao and said, "You can exchange your own items for star coins, and then choose one of these techniques to exchange. The Book of Cloud Shadows, the Book of Yinfeng Dao, the Black Wind Technique of Erosion." Looking at the names of the techniques and related introductions in front of him, Cao Zhao's heart was pounding, and he suddenly felt that it was not a bad thing to sell himself to this powerful existence, whose name was still unknown. Although the exchange price was not cheap, this kind of manner and gangsha level of true inheritance was originally in short supply, and it was a grace to allow him to exchange. Cao Zhao hesitated for a while, and finally chose Erosion of Bone Black Wind Gong. After all, this is not only a Taoist book that points directly to the perfection of gangsha, but also has the possibility of advanced supernatural powers in theory. Although the price is very high, as a master of gun casting, he is much richer than Moqiu. Not to mention anything else, just the few sword key talismans he carries with him are very valuable. It is said that this was made by the Iron Sword General he relied on. It is extremely powerful, but the casting steps are too troublesome. If there is no spiritual consciousness, it has to be cast on the altar to use it. But even so, Cao Zhao did not collect enough star coins in a short time, so he could only buy on credit and wait until he arrived in Dunhuang to take out his years of accumulation before returning. In this regard, Zhao Chen readily agreed. Give a sweet date after hitting a stick, so that subordinates can be more obedient, right? What's more, reaching a deal is also good for the progress of the traveling merchant. Feeling the increase in his true energy, Zhao Chen was in a good mood. He felt that, even if he stopped acting and relied on his own practice, he could completely open up the 8 extraordinary meridians within 5 or 6 days. He ignored Cao Zhao, who was also happy with the secret book, and turned to Fei-Meng and said, "By the way, Fei-Meng, I brought you a gift." While speaking, he took out a simple white dress with ice crystals on the surface from the package. It was the magic weapon Zuan Bing Yue from the Z family. "For me?" Fei-Meng's eyes lit up, and she took it without hesitation, compared it with her body, and then said with a smile, "It's beautiful and strong. I like it. I like it." Zhao Chen smiled and nodded. Although he wanted Fei-Meng to try it on the spot, he had to give up considering that Cao Zhao and Zishui were also here. But who would have thought that Zheng Qingyuan, who was standing aside, still had a calm expression, but said in an obviously unhappy tone, "Where's mine?" Femeng, are you really mentally ill? Is this considered competing for favor with yourself? Fortunately, you only have one incarnation now. If there are 33 incarnations in the future, do I have to prepare 34 gifts at once? Zhao Chen couldn't help but complain in his heart, but on the surface, he took out a chess piece-sized sapphire from his pocket, handed it to Zheng Qingyuan, and said, "Of course I won't forget you, Qingyuan, take it." This gem was naturally taken from the boxes of jewelry of the Z family. After Zheng Qingyuan took the sapphire, her expression was not obvious, but she could feel her joy mood. It seems that the girl of the Zheng family has fallen deeply in love. It's a pity that I'm afraid I'm not trusting the right person. Seeing this scene, Tao Zhao sighed secretly. After this episode, seeing that the sky was getting brighter, the abnormality at the Black Wind Castle might be discovered, which would cause riots. Zhao Chen decided to go back to Human and invite Yan Hongxia, the 7th rank demon suppressing envoy, to deal with the aftermath. After all, the Z family is also a local noble family. There must be an explanation for being wiped out like this. Fortunately, there is a witness named Zi Shuai. The fact that the Z family joined the Four Evils is irrefutable, and it is not unfair for them to be exterminated. He even confessed several superiors in Zhangai, which can be used by Yan Hongxia to gain merit. By the way, according to the memory and the residual soul of Blood Shadow, Zhuang Bufan did not bring him to Black Wind Castle, because he was worried that Sand Snake Yi Luan would be eager for revenge, and do bad things. Instead, he sent him, and some other men to hunt down Peony. But those people don't know Zhuang Bufan's real goal, nor do they know the relationship between the Ma brothers and the Blood Shadow group. It won't have much impact on us in the short term. Well, this point has been confirmed by Qingyuan's 9 Yaoyi of celestial phenomena. So, if the official only says that the Z family was exterminated and does not mention the Blood Shadow group, the Ma brothers and the family behind them should not be able to find us for a while. Qi Fimeng had just said this when Zheng Qingyuan interrupted and said, "When you report to Yan Hongxia, just put the blame on me. In the future, even if the family behind Ma Guangming's brother finds out that Zhuang died on the same night that the Z family was exterminated, I will be the first suspect. What's more, it was me who caused the lightning to kill them." In a private room of a restaurant in Dunhuang, Ma Guangming, the sun sword who was drinking alone, looked at his younger brother Ma Guanglian, who pushed the door in, and asked, "Are the third brother, fourth brother, and fifth sister settled?" Settled, Ma Guangliang, with a shiny head, nodded slightly, then sighed. "I didn't expect that the fifth sister would call the third and fourth brothers as well. It's nothing. As long as the sixth brother Li Changsheng is not here, everything else is easy." Ma Guangming picked up the wine glass and took a sip with an expressionless face. Ma Guanglian hesitated for a long time, but still asked with a complicated expression, "Do we really want to take action against our sworn brothers? As long as the benefits are big enough, we must take action. After all, they are not our brothers." Ma Guangming replied coldly and seemed unwilling to talk about this matter. He turned to ask, "Zhuang Bufan went to send a letter to Mingsu. Hasn't he returned yet?" "Not yet." Ma Guanglian shook his head. "It seems that she is unwilling to help us anymore." "That's right. Who would keep investing in someone who doesn't get a return? Fortunately, she won't betray us. I still believe this," Ma Guangming said here, and then said bitterly, "This time, it is our best chance. We must find the opportunity to obtain the top grade magical power and let those people in the family who look down on us." Chapter 138 Promotion. The snow white noodles are soaked in the brown yellow soup. The deep red beef and the green coriander are evenly sprinkled in the soup, making people feel like a colorful work of art, bringing all-round enjoyment of vision, smell, and taste. Yan Hongxia, who had just gotten up, blew the hot air rising from the bowl, tasted the delicious and mellow soup, and felt extremely satisfied. Although the mana monks are considered to be preliminary breath eaters, they can fast to a certain extent, and there is no big problem if they don't eat or drink for more than 10 days, but they still need to regularly supplement some trace substances needed by the body. It's just that it's best to use spiritual grains, spiritual rice, or the meat of monsters and fierce beasts, otherwise it will hinder their own practice. However, Yan Hongxue is eating this breakfast now, not to supplement her own needs, but simply to satisfy her appetite. Tasting food is one of her hobbies. As long as she has the time and conditions, she will not wrong herself. Gulp, gulp, Yan Hongxue drank the noodle soup without any image. When she was licking her shiny lips with great satisfaction, she suddenly felt something was wrong. She turned her head and looked to the side, only to see a handsome boy with a slightly broad forehead staring at her with a smile. If it wasn't Zhao Chen, who else could it be? Yan Hongxue silently put down the bowl in her hand, took out a handkerchief to wipe her mouth, and then asked with a stiff face, "When did you come?" "When the maid in your house brought the bowl of beef noodles in." Zhao Chen suppressed his smile and answered sincerely. In other words, he came into Yan Hongxue's room with the bowl of beef noodles. As the owner of the other party, he didn't want the other party to notice, so Yan Hongxue didn't notice it at all. As for the other people in the Yan mansion, they couldn't see through the effect of the toad light. Didn't they see it from beginning to end? The image of the chivalrous woman I was managing. Yan Hongxue suddenly couldn't hold it anymore, and a touch of red glow climbed up her cheeks again. Seeing Yan Hongxue's angry expression, Zhao Chen couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth. He didn't expect that Sister Hongxue, who was evaluated as a face like peach blossoms and a mind like cunning by the human Renji list, actually had such a, well, cute side. It was really an unexpected gain, and it was worth his trip. You know, as Yan Hongxue's master, Zhao Chen could give her some simple orders through the Dairi Xingcha and directly notify her to come to Hefeng Fort. The reason why he went back to human in person was, firstly, because such a matter would trouble the master of Xingcha, which would invisibly lower the status and make Sister Hongxue doubt his relationship with the master. Secondly, if Yan Hongxue ran to Hefeng Fort for no reason, she would definitely arouse suspicion afterwards, and it would be justified for him to go there. As for why he could come back so quickly, this can all be attributed to the Sakura Dragon Fairy. Anyway, it has been determined that she will take the blame. After Yan Hongxue had been lost in thought for a long time, she finally gave up and decided not to think about those things anymore. Anyway, she had lost her image in front of this little pervert. "Didn't you lead the caravan to Dunhuang? Why did you come to me so early?" Yan Hongxue changed the subject. "Something happened at Blackwind Castle, and you need to come forward to deal with it." Zhao Chen pretended not to see her put away the dishes and chopsticks, and simply told Yan Hongxue what happened last night. Of course, he didn't put all the blame on Zheng Qinggan as Qi Meng said. After all, Sister Hongxue was someone he could completely trust. He just concealed Qi Meng's existence and her role. After all, Qi Meng was a good friend of his, so she told him some secrets, but he couldn't reveal them to others without permission. This was a matter of principle. The Zi family is actually a subordinate of the Four Evils Hall, and has done so many cruel things. Well done. Yan Hongxue first affirmed what Zhao Chen did, and then after a little thought, she asked doubtfully, however, can the superiors given out by Zishuai be trusted? It is very rare for the followers of evil spirits to have such weak wills. Moreover, the person in charge of this region will definitely be restricted. The original person in charge of the Zi family should have been Crazy San Zibodu, but you know, due to the distortion of history by some force, Zishuai came to power, and he obviously has not been restricted by the evil spirits yet. Haha, the Four Evils Hall may have been tricked by the historical fog of the Chijin area this time. Zhao Chen explained with a smile. I see. Without further ado, I will immediately gather reliable personnel and rush to Blackwind Fort to block the news, lest the superiors of the Four Evils Hall in Zangai get wind of it. After I interrogate Zishuai, I will report it to the Daoist official office and the Li family in Zangai. At this point, Yan Hongxue paused and added, Zishuai will also collapse because of the torture, so there is no need to worry about exposing the master's secret. Sister Hongxue is indeed thoughtful and considerate. Zhao Chen nodded with satisfaction, then took out a small box from his bag and handed it to the other party. This is a reward for you. Yan Hongxia wanted to refuse, but as her spiritual consciousness subconsciously scanned it, she found that it contained a drop of solidified nectar containing Rinxu Hugang. This is exactly the material she needs to practice the Black Emperor Tangsu sword key. So Yan Hongxia took it solemnly and thanked her. You don't need to be so polite with me. Zhao Chen waved his hand, not to mention that Yan Hongxia's early cultivation of the Black Emperor Tangsu sword is also a benefit for him. By the way, what is your relationship with that Zheng family prodigy? Why is she willing to help you? At this time, Yan Hongxia asked casually. A friend. Zhang Taoist office. A Taoist priest with a thin face, a dry body, and wearing a golden Taoist robe was squinting his eyes and listening to the report of his subordinates. He was called King Guanzi, with a supernatural power realm. He was born in the outer sect of Dunding Xianzang, one of the upper sects. He is currently a 5th rank Taoist official and a doctor of Jink in the Ganzhou Taoist office. Sir, the information reported by Human County is correct. Several gangs in the city, such as Tehangxuan and Lingxiao Pavilion, are all the assets of the Four Evil Hall, and have been completely eradicated. Only one of the outer sect managers of the Li family, because he was a disciple of that master Yunfeng, got the news in advance and fled. A middle-aged man in the 6th rank Taoist official uniform reported. Humph, the younger generation of the Li family is really getting more and more useless. You take my letter and inform the elder of the Li family about this matter and ask him to give an explanation. King Yunzi snorted and then asked, I remember that Yan Wen of Human also disappeared when he was chasing Song Weiyuru, just like the head of the Li family. Who is in charge of Human now? My lord, it is the demon subduer Yan Hongxia who is acting as the agent. She is also a relative of the Li family. The middle-aged man replied. There are still some talented people among the relatives of the Li family. They did a good job this time. Let Yan Hongxia handle the property and land of the Zi family herself. King Yunzi nodded, and then after thinking for a while, he ordered, a small border county like Human does not need a Chaos Heo envoy of the supernatural realm to be in charge. I don't know why the court had given him such a high position before. Well, in this case, promote Yan Hongxia to the 6th rank Chaos Heo deputy envoy and officially take charge of the affairs of Human County. Yes, sir. The middle-aged man responded, hesitated for a moment, and asked again, how should the slayer who first discovered the Zi family's misconduct be rewarded? Let Yan Hongxia decide on this kind of trivial matter. Yes. After receiving the reply, the middle-aged man quickly left the Daoguan office. Then, he walked through the streets and alleys, and came to a small house with a Jiangnan water village style. Chapter 139 Gift. There was a pleasant sound of zither coming from the courtyard, high, spacious and clear. The middle-aged man from the Daoist official office walked to a corner gate of the courtyard, and stopped to listen for a while. He pushed the door, and entered the courtyard until the sound of the zither changed, like a bright lake under the moon, reflecting the brilliance, with a faint sadness and sweetness, bringing in a peace. There was a gurgling water in the courtyard, layers of trees, and winding paths. At the end of the path, in the light smoke and willows, there was an exquisite octagonal pavilion. In the pavilion, sat a girl dressed as a man, wearing a silk scarf on her head, playing the guqin in her hands, and a burner of sandalwood was lit next to the guqin. Behind her were two tall and burly strong men as guards. The middle-aged man did not dare to approach the octagonal pavilion, and stopped far away. After the sound of the piano disappeared, he bowed and said, Miss, no, sir, except for those who were handed over to the Taoist office. All the members of the four evil halls hidden in the state city have been killed, including the incense master who disguised himself as the steward of the Li family. Although he got the news in advance, his soul was still captured by the strong man you gave me. The girl dressed in men's clothes coughed lightly, and said in a hoarse voice, very good. I'm very satisfied with the way this matter was handled. You should also learn more from the Taoist officials of Human County, and try to dig out more bastards of the four evil halls. Yes, sir. However, this incense master in the state city is not like Zishuai. His soul must be polluted by demons and there are restrictions. I apply to use the yellow sky flag, to block the demons from snooping. The middle-aged man requested. Okay. The girl in men's clothing nodded slightly, then coughed violently a few times. After wiping her mouth with a handkerchief, she instructed, the information says, that Zishuai has an elder brother named Zhangchi, who seems to have worshipped under the Fian mountain in Shanzhou, and became its inner disciple. Just send someone to get rid of him. What the Zi family has done is utterly unscrupulous. I think he is not innocent either. The middle-aged man frowned and said carefully, although Fian Mountain has declined in recent years, and lost its only Dangsa and Zenran, its foundation is still there. There are phantom magic weapons to suppress it. Wouldn't it be too much to kill their inner disciples directly? It is better to go to the leader of the sect, and explain something before taking action. The bastards of the demonic house, just kill them. Does Fian Mountain dare to come to me to argue? Perhaps because she was a little emotional, the girl in men's clothing coughed so hard that she couldn't breathe for a while. After a long time, she spit out a mouthful of blood into her handkerchief, which was bright red and hideous. The middle-aged man didn't dare to say anything back, and hurriedly lowered his head to respond. Don't be afraid, I'm still confident in your work. After adjusting her breath a little, the girl in men's clothing said, by the way, the evil slayer who first discovered the problem of the Z family and interrogated the key information should be rewarded well. Although this is the credit of the Zheng family sister, but without him, the Zheng family sister would not go to the Blackwind Castle. Well, you send a message to Huang Shizan Inhuman and ask him to help me prepare a gift for the evil slayer. Yes, sir. After the middle-aged man left, the woman in men's clothing took a pill and then played the piano again, using music to regulate her body. There is still some time before the lamp goes out and the oil runs out. For Evil Hall, I will do my best to eradicate you cancer in the limited remaining life. At the entrance of the underground passage of the Blackwind Castle, Zhao Chen guided a group of soldiers into it and then became a hands-off shopkeeper, just accumulating true energy and practicing swordsmanship. Anyway, the most valuable things in it have already gone into his pocket, so there is no need for him to compete with others for the oil and water. At this time, 3 days had passed since Yan Hangsha arrived at Blackwind Castle. All kinds of house search and evidence collection work were nearing the end. The property of the Z family had basically been divided up by all parties. Only the ownership of the oasis in Blackwind Castle was still controversial. But this had nothing to do with Zhao Chen. After all, even if this oasis city was given to him, he couldn't keep it with his apparent strength. Just as he was bored and practicing the Chu Yang sword technique, he saw a man in armor coming over. He was 7 feet tall, with a dignified appearance, and there was a tall and burly strong man beside him. This man was a leader of the officers and soldiers of Human County, named Jizin. He had the strength of opening 4 orifices, and was also considered a young talent in the county, especially since he didn't have a strong background behind him. He could become a leader only by his personal merit accumulation. He didn't have any good feelings towards Zhao Chen, who relied on Yan Hangsha to become a 9th ranked Taoist official, and was on the same level as him. As soon as Zhao Chen saw this man, he knew that trouble was coming, because Jizin not only looked down on him, but also seemed to have some secret thoughts about Yan Hangsha. This can be seen from the fact that he was very happy to talk to Yan Hangsha and get a compliment. And he was rumored to be Yan Hangsha's little lover, and even talked and laughed with her frequently in the past few days. In short, Zhao Chen felt that the look in this boy's eyes when he looked at him was getting more and more dangerous, and he probably had no good intentions when he came here today. Jizin really disliked Zhao Chen more and more, and wanted to find an excuse to teach him a lesson, but he was not a fool. Naturally, he had heard about the other party's feat of beheading Liu Hang and more than a dozen other horse thieves with a sword in the past few days. He was not sure of winning, and was worried that it would make Yan Hangsha unhappy, so he had not taken action. But today was different, because I asked for help, and it was not my fault afterwards. Jizin showed a sinister smile on his face and deliberately said, Zhao Zangxishi, how can you make progress if you practice martial arts alone? Let my friend come to practice with you. After that, he didn't care whether Zhao Chen was ready or not, and directly said to the strong man beside him, Brother Huang, according to what we agreed before, if you help me teach someone a lesson, I will help you find the person you are looking for. The strong man looked at Jizin with an ambiguous look and nodded. That's what you said. Zhao Chen, who wanted to get rid of them as soon as possible, felt a little familiar when he heard the strong man's voice. He thought about it carefully, and the organizer of the Dairi Xingcha rally, the man who called himself Golden Strongman and had a special fetish, quickly flashed in his mind. Yes, a gentleman's word is as good as a horse. Jizin replied happily. But the next moment, he suddenly screamed because his hands, arms, and even thighs were swelled up with blisters, as if they were scalded by boiling water. Okay, I've taught you a lesson. You can go now, the sturdy man said with a smile. Before he finished speaking, Jizin seemed to suddenly lose control of his body. He screamed, walked towards the lake, and jumped directly into the water. After doing this, the tall man looked at Zhao Chen and said with a smile, "The young master asked me to bring you a gift." Update progress, 11/45. Chapter 140 Rewards. Seeing Jizin's miserable state, Zhao Chen was also shocked, because even if he had been using his spiritual senses, he could not detect how the tall man in front of him made his move. But he had many cards in his hand, so he asked calmly, "Who are you? Who is the young master you mentioned?" The tall and strong man laughed haha and said in a rough tone, "I'm Huangji, the owner of UCUI Fang, and young master Zhao may have heard of him. As for my young master, you only need to know that she is very satisfied with your discovery that the Z family is a member of the Four Evil Hall, and she wants to reward you." Yukifang is a chain business organization that is spread across many states and counties in Daksha. Its scale is much larger than the local human chamber of commerce. Its main products are the flesh and blood of various monsters and fierce beasts. It is rumored that it has a close relationship with the military. Although it is not among the 9 major sects, it is also the top existence among the second-level forces, and it is suspected that there is a royal family of Daksha behind it. The owner of humans Yukifang Huangji is a cultivator who is close to perfection in Gangsha. He ranks second on the human outstanding list, and is known as the Golden Armor Immortal Soldier. Such a big shot is actually running errands for the so-called young master? What is his background? And Jizin is so ignorant that he dares to call such a person a brother and use him as a gun. I guess he doesn't know the other party's identity. In addition, the so-called young master actually sent someone to give him a reward because a stronghold of the Four Evil Hall was destroyed. Obviously, he has a great grudge against the other party, and the organizer of the Dairi Xingcha gathering is also quite at odds with the Four Evil Hall. So, the Golden Armor Immortal Soldier Huangji in front of him is really the Golden Warrior who organized the rally? As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen responded politely, "Exposing evil organizations is what Taoist officials should do. I don't care whether it's right or not. I only listen to the orders of the young master." Huangji waved his hand and then took out a small bag, which was made of colorful silk with embroidered borders and looked extremely gorgeous. "This is..." Zhao Chen just used his spiritual sense to scan it, and his eyes suddenly widened, because in this small bag there was actually a 1-meter square space hidden. The space was filled with all kinds of flesh and blood with strong auras, containing rich spiritual energy. Is this actually a space pocket? Not to mention the things inside, just this bag itself is a rare good thing. After all, spells involving space are basically related to the upper 3-grade magical powers, which are extremely rare, and there are even fewer cultivators who understand this kind of spells, and can use spells to make related storage items. As far as Zhao Chen knows, even a space bag with a useful life of only 1 or 2 years is worth at least 3,000 strings of cash, and it is still out of stock. It contains 500 kilograms of 4th level green dragon meat, which is of great benefit to true key, refining orifices, and even mana cultivators. The effect is only slightly worse than the corresponding elixir of Dunding Xianzang, and it is considered a rare practice resource. Well, this space bag still has a lifespan of about 3 months, so I'll give it to you. Although Huangji's voice was still rude and unpleasant, it sounded so pleasant to Zhao Chen. He did not refuse hypocritically, but put the bag away and said, "Thank you very much for the reward, young master." Huangji was very satisfied with his unpretentious attitude. He nodded and said, "Young master is very good, and will definitely have a great future. Well, by the way, if you have any information about the Four Evil Hall in the future, you can report it directly to me. At that time, various rewards will definitely be indispensable. After a few more brief instructions, Huang Ji said no more to Zhao Chen and turned to leave. He was a gangsha cultivator, and he was willing to come to Blackwind Castle in person to find a small shrimp at the true key level. It was because of the order of the young master that he condescended to do so. Now that he had done his job, he would naturally not stay any longer. Zhao Chen, who watched him leave, frowned slightly and decided to return to the inn to find Qi Meng to ask about the background of Yu Fang after the mission of the Taoist office was over today. She had obtained all the memories of Zheng Qingan and should know some inside information. Although such a big benefit was obtained in vain, we must find out the reason, right? Otherwise, the dragon meat would not taste good. Human County City, the Li family's residence. Yan Hongxia, who received the promotion notice, had not had time to go to the classics pavilion of the Taoist office to line her own pockets before she was called over by Li Fuan, the Li family's supernatural cultivator stationed in Human. She thought that her private study of the Black Emperor's blood-passing sword art had been exposed, and she was feeling uneasy, but who would have thought that the Green Lotus sword would say in a friendly manner, "Hongxia, you have made a great contribution this time. The family has decided to reward you and let you choose one of the Black Emperor's blood-passing sword art, Green Emperor's soul-protecting sword art and White Emperor's soul-serving sword art. Which one do you want to choose? Why did they suddenly reward me? Well, could it be because Li Yunfeng made a mistake and let the incense master of the Four Evil Hall go? This not only wins over my in-law, but also gives an explanation to the Taoist office. Kill two birds with one stone. What a good plan." Yan Hongxia figured out the cause and effect in a flash, so she answered without hesitation, "I choose the Green Emperor's soul-protecting sword art." The Black Emperor's blood-passing sword was already in hand, and Zhao Chen seemed to have some clues about the White Emperor's soul-serving sword, so she naturally chose the Green Emperor's soul-protecting sword. As for the Huangdi Zhongzhu, it was the core sword technique that was only passed down to the direct descendants of the Li family, and no one outside the family had ever obtained it. Blackwind Castle, evening. After the work of confiscating the house and collecting the bodies of the murdered people was temporarily completed, Zhao Chen returned to the hotel and found Qi Meng, who was studying the Z family's The Divine Tiger commanding ghosts to save people, and through the space bag he got to data her. Zibodu, who created the Divine Tiger commanding ghosts to save people scripture, is truly a genius. He has elevated ordinary ghost magic to the level of saving people, to the point where his ghosts can constantly reshape their skins, as long as their true spirits are immortal. Qi Meng, who had just expressed her admiration to Zhao Chen, took the storage bag and immediately exclaimed in surprise, "Space bag? There's so much dragon meat in it. Where did it come from?" "It's a reward for me." Zhao Chen mentioned what happened to Huang Ji today to Qi Meng, and finally asked, "Do you know the background of Yu Fang?" Qi Meng thought about it and said uncertainly, "I only know that Yu Fang is the property of several princes of the royal family, but Zheng Qingan hasn't paid attention to which ones they are before. The only ones we can be sure of are the King of Chu and the King of Qin. By the way, the Qin Palace suffered a severe blow more than 10 years ago, and almost all the direct members were wiped out. In the end, the throne was inherited by a side branch. I wonder if this is related to the Four Evils Hall. If so, it makes sense." Zhao Chen asked in surprise, "Even the royal palace was in trouble? Isn't it said that, apart from the Xinjiang temple, other evil organizations rarely harm the Great Zaire area? Compared to the chaotic times more than 8,000 years ago, it is indeed rare. But once something happens, it will be a disaster." Qi Meng said solemnly, "I got up late in the morning and had a lot of things to do, so I'm a little late. Sorry." Chapter 141. Perfect Key. For example, 18 years ago, the former leader of the 10,000 Beasts sect turned into a Taoist evil and poisoned the entire Liaozhou. For example, 12 years ago, a city with a population of 1 million Injizhou was sacrificed, and a very evil demon descended. A Shengxuan's engine from the aristocratic Su family risked his life to seal it. For example, 3 years ago, there was a monster chaos in the 10,000 mountains in Qianzhou. Behind all these things, there are the figures of those evil organizations, and these are just the conspiracies that were successfully launched. There were many more conspiracies that were stopped in time by the Taoist office, major families, and clans. Although Daxia seems stable and peaceful on the surface, it actually has all kinds of crises lurking. At this point, Qi Fimeng suddenly sighed and continued, but even so, compared to those vassal small countries, Daxia can be regarded as a paradise for mankind. Even the powerful countries in the West have a much worse living environment than Daxia. Miss Qi, why is there a hint of envy in your tone? It's as if she is not from Dazire. Combining Fimeng's previous temperament and habits, Zhao Chen had some vague guesses in his heart, but he did not point it out to her face, and directly changed the subject. Speaking of which, Fimeng, do you know how to eat this green dragon meat? Seeing this, Qi Fimeng pondered for a moment, shook her head and said, I'm not sure. I only know that, although the meat of monsters and fierce beasts contains a lot of vitality, it is also polluted. You can't eat too much at one time, otherwise the body may transform into the image of monster. For example, grow some scales, more horns and so on. I know this. When I asked how to eat it, I actually wanted to say how to cook it. You can't just swallow it with blood, that's so disgusting. Complaining in his heart, Zhao Chen asked curiously on the surface, has Zheng Qingyan never eaten dragon meat? The fairies from noble families naturally use spiritual grains, spiritual rice, and various precious elixirs for their cultivation, and the source of the Zheng family's clan lore is the Dragon King. Once they achieved Anksun, the condensed Dharma images and true bodies are all various real dragons. It is unlikely that they will eat the same kind, right? Qi Fimeng covered her mouth and laughed, and then said, it's a pity that Qingyan's evil dragon immortal body can't be restored for the time being, otherwise she could really use the secret method to make part of her body dragonized. So, Zhao Chen was a little disappointed when he heard it, but he quickly remembered the pious look of Yan Hongxue when she ate noodles that morning, and he touched his chin and said, maybe I should ask the food expert. Speaking of which, the things over there with Sister Hongxue should be dealt with, right? Food expert Yan Hongxue did not let Zhao Chen wait any longer. The next morning, she flew to Blackwind Castle on a cloud. After simply dealing with the affairs accumulated in the past 2 days, she called Zhao Chen alone to a quiet room in the underground fortress of the Z family. Such an action made the military corporals and sergeants who had been busy for several days jealous. They secretly cursed the pretty boy, saying that he was not doing anything, and still got the favor of his superiors. He was simply not a human being. If ice could kill, Zhao Chen would probably have a few more bloody wounds on his body. Sister Hongxue, you really know how to attract hatred for me. Zhao Chen was a little speechless, but this little pressure was nothing to him. He even looked at the people outside provocatively before entering the room, and closed the door heavily. Seeing this, Yan Hongxue also put on a smile on her face. It was the first time she saw such a childish side in this mature and steady young man in front of her. She couldn't help but knock him. I heard that manager Huang of UCUI Fang helped you to cripple Jizing. Although the military dare not say anything openly, because it was shopkeeper Huang who did the action, many people have expressed their dissatisfaction to me in private. Zhao Chen shook his head and replied innocently, this has nothing to do with me. In fact, it's all your fault, Sister Hongxue. If it weren't for your great charm, why would Jizing cause trouble for me so frequently? If he hadn't caused trouble, he wouldn't have been so unlucky to meet Huang Ji who came looking for me. I'm too charming. Although this was a way of shifting the blame, Yan Hongxue unexpectedly liked to hear it. She snorted contentedly and stopped dwelling on this topic. Instead, she asked, what does Huang Ji want you to do? There was naturally no need to hide anything from Yan Hongxue, so Zhao Chen organized his sentences and recounted the whole story of Huang Ji's visit in detail. At the end, he took out 5 or 6 pounds of dragon meat and asked expectantly, Sister Hongxue, can you cook this kind of food? Yan Hongxue's eyes lit up when she saw the dragon meat, and she said, actually, I'm an old customer of UCUI Fang, and have a lot of experience in processing monster meat, but this is my first time to get green dragon flesh. Luckily, I bought a copy of Dragon Food Essentials before. It is said to be written by King Yuan, the contemporary temple keeper of Dragon King Temple. It records many ways of cooking dragon meat. Zhao Chen looked at Yan Hongxia's excited face, but a confused expression appeared on his face. Dragon King Temple. Isn't that an evil organization that believes in the extremely evil demon Dragon King? Its temple priest eats dragons himself, and his books can still be published in Daxia? No matter how you think about it, this is a bit magical. Its temple priest King Yuan is well known to the world for her love of dragon meat, and she is different from the previous temple priests of the Dragon King Temple. She seems to have regained her humanity. So in the past 10 years, the intensity of the war on the East China Sea defense line has dropped a lot. I don't know the specific situation, but the official news about her is generally very positive, and her various works are always publicly released, and the various upper sects and families have a tacit attitude towards this. After Yan Hongxia replied casually, she couldn't wait to use the Zhaoguang net as a pot, the Chidi Yangyuan sword key as a knife and shovel, using the heat of the true essence and various seasonings, to start stir-frying the dragon meat that Zhao Chen took out. After a while, when the cold moonlight shone into the room through the reserved skylight, Zhao Chen picked up a piece of tender and soft dragon meat with chopsticks and put it into his mouth. It melted in his mouth and lingered on his lips. It was really good. Zhao Chen just commented in his heart, and then he heard Yan Hongxia asked in a somewhat nervous tone, "How is it? This green dragon pork shreds is the first time I make it. Maybe I didn't control the heat well. Goddamn green dragon pork shreds. This dish name is really amazing." While complaining in his heart, Zhao Chen felt a stream of clear water rushing straight into his chest and abdomen. It was obviously the medicine power in the dragon meat began to take effect. He didn't dare to delay, and quickly swept away the green dragon pork shreds in front of him, and then closed his eyes and slowly refined it. The secret record of key circulation in the 12 doors of the Golden Building and Jade Chamber ran automatically, and the surging true key passed through the 12 meridians, the 8 extraordinary meridians and the 71 minor meridians, and impacted the node of the last meridian. Although the vitality brought by the dragon meat was like a tide, that node was like a solid levee blocking it. He attacked it 3 times in a row but failed. In the final analysis, it was because he had practiced for too short a time and had not accumulated enough. But fortunately, Zhao Chen had a good character and was not impatient. Instead, he accumulated strength again and wanted to break through in one fell swoop. At this moment, he suddenly felt a burning true energy flowing into his body, merging with his true energy and rushing to the last meridian. Obviously, at this critical moment, Yan Hongxia once again performed double cultivation with him and gave him support. There seemed to be a roar in the body, and the true energy that received strong support finally broke through that node and expanded and moistened that meridian. At this moment, Zhao Chen only felt that the true energy in his body was flowing endlessly, as if he was using his arms and fingers, and he was free and easy. After traveling through a month, the practice of the true energy realm was finally completed. The Dragon Boat Festival is quite busy, so it's a bit late. By the way, I wish you all a happy Dragon Boat Festival. Chapter 142 Opening the Eyes. At this moment, even if Zhao Chen did not deliberately circulate the 5 immortal spiritual key, it still maintained its own circulation, because this was one of the signs of the perfect state of key. Since then, he was no longer afraid of cold and heat, and could naturally defend himself when encountering enemies. Under normal circumstances, he did not need to deliberately mobilize his ki to attack, and his every move was natural. However, Zhao Chen did not intend to stop practicing immediately to experience the perfect state of ki. He planned to open his eyes in one go before the effect of the dragon meat was completely exhausted. So, he began to visualize the 5 emperors touring true form diagram in the purple household immortal secret obtained from Zhang Yunlu, and changed the state of ki into the red emperor's nourishing essence that had been practiced, and refined the 9 acupoints related to the eyes. Yan Hongxia, who had just helped Zhao Chen open the last meridian with one hand against his danshan, wanted to stop practicing, but suddenly felt that the other party was absorbing her true essence more violently than before. After a brief thought, she understood Zhao Chen's plan, so she gritted her teeth and used a real double cultivation method she had just learned recently to support the other party's actions. As the true ki and true essence merged, Yan Hongxia's face became flushed, and her body became more and more hot. In the end, she had to undress to relieve it. The double cultivation method can only be used normally when doing double cultivation, otherwise there will be some side effects, such as body heat. On the other hand, Zhao Chen, who was refining the acupoints, had no idea how much sacrifice Yan Hongxia had made to help him. He was still calm in the early stage of refining, but gradually, he felt his eyes swollen and painful. Originally, his vision after closing his eyes should be dark, but now it was like someone set a fire, and the sky was full of fire clouds. And in this dark vision full of fire clouds, the 9 related acupoints of the eye orifice lit up like stars, bright and pure, shining directly into the heart. Zhao Chen concentrated his mind and calmed his breath. He circulated the 5 immortal spiritual energy in the state of red emperor nourishing essence, and merged it with the medicinal power of the green dragon's flesh and blood in the true energy supported by Yan Hongxia, and then slapped it together to the center of the line connecting the 9 stars. This step was extremely difficult. Zhao Chen's true energy seemed to have formed a wrestling match with those stars, and he could not complete this last step anyway. The only good news was that the resistance of the stars was gradually weakening, while Zhao Chen's true energy was getting stronger and stronger with the support of Yan Hongxia and her green dragon meat silk. After an unknown amount of time, the infused true energy finally exceeded the limit of the eye's absorption, and rays of light bloomed from it, illuminating the darkness and extinguishing the fire cloud. Boom. At this moment, Zhao Chen finally opened his eyes, and opened his dark and deep eyes. Then, the subtle mysteries of this world appeared before his eyes. The room was still the same room, the ground was still the same ground, the moonlight was still so cold, everything was the same as before, but in Zhao Chen's eyes, he had a completely different feeling, as if he could see deeper, more thoroughly, and more details. Seeing a mountain is not a mountain, seeing water is not water. This is Zhao Chen's intuitive feeling, after refining his eyes, which is very different from the feeling brought to him by his spiritual perception before. For example, the surface texture of each grain of sand on the ground is different. Spiritual perception cannot reflect so subtle. For example, the sadness and longing in the moonlight are so profound. Although spiritual perception can also detect it, it is not so intuitive. For example, the residual ghosts that have not been dealt with in the ground can only be vaguely sensed by spiritual perception. For example, the white on Sister Hongxia's open front. Seeing this, Zhao Chen suddenly stuck and didn't know where to put his eyes for a while. Yan Hongxia also came back to her senses at this time and quickly stopped the practice and sorted out her clothes. Zhao Chen coughed, looked away in a very gentlemanly way, and continued to think to divert his attention. No wonder the gunfighting technique was immediately improved after the eye orifice was opened. After all, the opponent's movements, even the surface route of the true key circulation, are all deconstructed slow motion in my eyes now, so I can fight however I want. The reason why I was not at a disadvantage in the previous fights with opponents who opened their eye orifices was that they were all close combat, and I had a great advantage, because I could release my spiritual perception. Although the effect of releasing spiritual perception has many disadvantages compared to refining the eye orifice, it also has its own advantages. For example, although the range of spiritual perception is small, it is a 360-degree observation method without blind spots. The soul is strong enough to even directly observe the inside of the opponent's body. For example, although spiritual perception cannot see the details of things clearly, it can see many things that the eyes cannot see, and the dimension is wider. For example, spiritual perception can also have a certain premonition, which can be truly anticipated and predicted. For example, when the spiritual perception is strong enough, it can build momentum and suppress the enemy. Moreover, the range and observation of spiritual perception are not static, and will be improved with the improvement of soul power. In addition, spiritual perception and opening the eye orifice are not contradictory, and the two are actually complementary. The eye is the orifice of the liver, and the eye orifice is the liver orifice. This practice of the liver will make the liver key flourish and endless, and the recovery ability will be greatly enhanced. The true key and strength will also increase a lot. When the 5 internal organs are all practiced, the soul power will naturally increase accordingly. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen finished regulating his breathing and stabilized his state. He then stood up and bowed to Yan Hongxue, saying, "Thank you, Sister Hongxue, for your help." Yan Hongxue had also put on her clothes at this time, but her cheeks were still covered with red clouds. Seeing Zhao Chen thanking her, she had to force herself to be calm and teach him a lesson. "Zhao Chen, you are too anxious. Originally, with your perfect state of 5 immortal spiritual ki, it would be a matter of course to want to open your eyes. You will definitely succeed within a month. There is no need to make it so close to failure like now. I know, but special tasks can't wait. I have to improve my strength as soon as possible. Unfortunately, with my current state, I can't eat dragon meat continuously. I have to eat at least 3 or 5 pounds every week." Sighing secretly, Zhao Chen humbly agreed on the surface, and then asked casually, "Sister Hongxue, did you use some real dual cultivation method before? If you help me like this, will you suffer any loss?" The reason why she said this was because although Yan Hongxue's cheeks were red, her complexion was obviously not very healthy, and even her breath was a little disordered. Yan Hongxue deliberately skipped the question of dual cultivation and just waved her hand and said, "It's okay. Just give me a few dozen kilograms of dragon meat, and I will recover in a few days." Although she was just replenished, fortunately Zhao Chen's realm was not high, and the consumption was still within an acceptable range. "No problem, plenty of dragon meat." Zhao Chen nodded in agreement, then after hesitating for a while, he took out the bodhisattva joyful weaving that he had exchanged from the star chariot and said sincerely, "Sister Hongxue, the dual cultivation technique you learned is obviously not of good quality. Why don't you use my copy next time?" Hearing this, Yan Hongxue, who was finally filled with shyness, could no longer hold it in, but when she stood up and wanted to escape, she sadly found that her legs were sore and she had no strength at all. The two spent the second half of the night in this awkward atmosphere until it was slightly bright. Yan Hongxue recovered her strength and left the Z family's bunker with Zhao Chen one after the other. Update progress, 12/45. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143 for Evil Swords. 2 days later, the Black Wind Fort was finally dealt with, and Yan Hongxue returned to Human with her men. As for the ownership of this small town in the future, Zhao Chen naturally didn't need to worry about it. Anyway, no matter who won in the end, he and Yan Hongxue would have to pay a large amount of compensation. Zhao Chen's caravan also set off again on the morning of this day, heading for Dunhuang. As it was already early summer, the waterway between Black Wind Fort and Dunhuang was unobstructed. Zhao Chen, who had just been promoted to the refining acupoint and was getting familiar with his own realm, chose to take a boat without hesitation. This section of the waterway was upstream, and the surrounding environment was very harsh. If it were a few hundred years ago, the speed of travel was actually quite touching, and the assistance of trackers was indispensable. It would take at least half a month to reach Dunhuang. Fortunately, steamships have become popular in modern times. Although they are all old models in the western regions, the speed is not slow. It can reach the dock near Dunhuang in 2 days at most. On the deck of the ship, Zhao Chen's figure was changing constantly, and every change gave rise to an illusion, which was mixed with truth and falsehood and difficult to distinguish. Then, all the phantoms raised their revolvers at the same time and shot at a target on the shore. In an instant, all the phantoms disappeared together, and Zhao Chen himself had put away his gun, and stood still without knowing when. He looked at a broken stone on the shore, and nodded with satisfaction. He finally combined the water moon illusion body and the gunfighting technique in a preliminary way. The water moon illusion body is a basis of the water moon illusion god technique, one of the life spells of the ancient great sect water moon temple. It is a method that connects the internal organs with the heaven and earth, and the external universe with nature, so that the spirit and true energy can cooperate with each other. Therefore, it can create illusions within the range of spiritual perception and interfere with the enemy's senses. Even the monks who have opened their eyes can hardly see through it. As for the gunfighting technique, it was given to Zhao Chen by his senior brother Feng Kang. Although the other party could not tell the origin, it should be left by the forgotten master Huang. After putting away the famous gun, the blazing sun, Zhao Chen drew out the orange-red sunset sword and began to practice the early sun sword and thunder-like 3 slashes he had obtained in the historical mist. The former was the self-created swordsmanship of Liangsheng, the early sun sword, and the latter was the famous unique skill of Chen Pingxi, the thunder light sword, both of which were considered first-class swordsmanship in the realm of refining orifices. Unfortunately, most of the people around Zhao Chen were masters of fire guns, who could give him some guidance on gunfighting, but their swordsmanship was mediocre. Whether it was Qi Meng, Zheng Qingyan, or even Yan Hongxue, who used sword energy as her foundation, they were not good enough in swordsmanship, and were not as talented as Zhao Chen in this regard. So Zhao Chen could only work behind closed doors. But just as he stretched out his sword and practiced the wind and thunder slash with the sound of wind and thunder, he suddenly felt the temperature rise sharply, and a lot of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead and back, as if he was in a furnace. This surprised Zhao Chen. After all, he had already perfected his true ki, and his true ki could protect his body by itself, so he should be immune to cold and heat. What's more, such a temperature difference before and after was not normal. He put away his sword, took the towel handed over by Qi Meng, who played the role of a little maid, wiped the sweat, and asked casually, "Why is the climate here so abnormal?" Seeing the question, before Qi Meng spoke, Tao Zhao, the master of gun casting, took the initiative to answer. Reply to Master Chen, "It's because there is a flame mountain nearby." Flame mountain? Is there a Rakshasa woman in the mountain? Zhao Chen complained in his heart, but on the surface he repeated in confusion, "Flame mountain? Yes. That flame mountain was created when Dan Huang appeared hundreds of years ago. It is rumored that 2 Dangsuan masters fought there, and one of them, a real person from the Danding Immortal sect, showed his true body and ignited the mountain tops in that area, which has not been extinguished to this day. Now it is a treasure land for monks who practice flame-type spells, and many fire-attributed evil spirits can be found there." Tao Zhao explained simply. After a monk achieves Dangsun, his life level is fundamentally different from before. The Dharma appearance of the first realm of Dangsun is fine, but the true body of the second realm has the ability to pollute the world with its own way and initially change the laws of the world. The Dharma domain used by Jin Chanzi, who appeared in the stone Buddha temple before, was like this, but its power of descending from the air was too little, and the Dharma domain was just an empty shell. However, since it is a treasure land, there will be disputes. This area is also the most dangerous section of the road before Dunhuang. Qi Meng added on the side. She has lived in Dunhuang for a long time and is naturally familiar with the area. Maybe it was a crow's mouth, or maybe Qi Meng had noticed something in advance. Before she finished speaking, 2 figures, one chasing and one fleeing, came towards the ship chartered by the caravan. After opening his eyes, Zhao Chen had amazing eyesight. He could easily judge from the strength of the true ki around the 2 people that they were both cultivators who had just opened the Ren and Du meridians, but he didn't know how many acupoints they had opened. Most cultivators are not like him, who start to refine the acupoints after their true ki is perfect. The black-clothed woman who was running in front suddenly brightened her eyes when she saw the ship sailing in the river and rushed over regardless of anything. The big man who was chasing behind saw that the woman in front was running too fast and was afraid that she would rush onto the boat and get away in the chaos, so he snorted and shouted loudly, "Be Kishan Lion Huanhe is doing business. If you don't want to die, stop the woman and don't let her get on the boat." The Biki mountain chain village is a bandit force in the desert north of Dunhuang, in the direction of Beating. There are 4 village chiefs, hundreds of leaders, and thousands of followers. It is considered a strong force. The 4 village chiefs are all magical monks, and they all specialize in an evil sword technique, which is powerful and is known as the 4 evil swords of Biki. Although the Biki mountain chain village is more than 2,000 miles away from the Dunhuang area, its reputation is not weak at all. After all, the so-called 7 heroes of the South Desert became famous because of this group of bandits. Even in the many battles between the 7 heroes of the South Desert and the 4 evil swords of Biki, the former was at a disadvantage. Hearing the big man's arrogant words, Zhao Chen, who originally didn't want to meddle in other people's business, raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, what qualifications do you, a guy who can only refine the orifices at most, have to threaten us? Even if Fei Meng and I don't take action, the fire gun team led by Uncle Zan alone is enough to beat you into a sieve. As Zhao Chen thought, how could Zhao Zan, the captain of the fire gun team, accept such a threat? He directly ordered the fire gun team to enter a state of readiness and be ready to shoot at any time. The woman in black was relieved when she saw this and ran to the side of the boat quickly, shouting, I got a piece of material containing the 5-element fire evil, and I would like to use it to seek protection. I was chatting about squids with others in the group yesterday, and I went to bed at 3 o'clock. I didn't get up until noon, so the update was late. Chapter 144 Desert Eagle. Hearing the black-clad woman's call, Zhao Chen, who was standing on the deck, looked down and saw that the other party seemed to be young, about the same age as Fei Meng, with delicate features, but a little short. Bring the materials of the 5-element fire evil first. Zhao Chen had actually decided to take care of this matter, but as a businessman, he still needed to be a person who would not do anything without profit. Okay. The black-clad girl was also very straightforward. She raised a metal box and jumped onto the side of the ship. Seeing this, the strong man who was chasing behind snorted coldly and then threw a talisman into the air. Command. The talisman ignited by itself, and the flames expanded rapidly in the air, turning into a giant flaming claw as big as a house, falling down with the momentum of Mount Tay, and the target was the ship where the caravan was. This magic talisman was the reason why the strong man dared to threaten the entire fire gun team. Although its power was not enough to completely destroy a steel ship, it could indeed cause heavy damage to the fire gun team. In response, the ordinary dress that Fei Meng was wearing suddenly lit up with an ice blue light, and a shield made of ice crystals emerged, with a flashing light on the surface, and suddenly expanded to block the falling flaming claws. This was one of the spells that came with the Zuanbing feather clothes that Zhao Chen gave to Fei Meng, the Zuanbing shield. Bang! The flaming claws that hit the ice crystal shield exploded and turned into small fireballs, falling on the ground around them. This scene not only made the black-clothed woman look happy, but even the big man who was chasing was stunned, as if he had never expected that his flaming claws would be cracked. At this time, Zhao Chen, who had just been promoted and was looking for someone to practice with, had already jumped off the deck, and the scorching sun revolver in his hand also roared at the same time. The other party was a bandit and took the initiative to attack his own caravan, so naturally there was a way to die. The strong man from the North Kishan Lionhuan village was experienced after all, and he reacted the moment Zhao Chen fired. Although he could easily capture the trajectory of the bullet with his eyes, his nose and 6 orifices, the strong man did not dodge rashly. After all, the bullets turning and speeding up in the final stage are the core skills that every gunfighting technique master has mastered. Once careless, the end is immediate death. Therefore, the strong man fired 3 shots in a row according to the standard response method of gunfighting technique. 1 shot to fight back at the enemy, forcing the enemy to interrupt the subsequent shooting, and 1 shot to the opponent's bullet, so that it would either be shot down before turning, or disguised in advance to determine the trajectory. The last shot was fired at Zhao Zan, the captain of the fire gun team on the ship, trying to distract the enemy. But he didn't know that Zhao Chen had only opened his eyes at this time, and gunfighting technique was at most a small success, and he had no ability to make the bullet turn. The purpose of his first shot was to make the strong man dare not act rashly, and give him time to approach the other party. So after Zhao Chen jumped off the boat, he started the water moon illusion body. His figure kept changing under the sunlight, and it was an illusion at all times and everywhere, which made people unable to understand and figure it out. And facing the other party's counter-attack bullet, Zhao Chen ignored it. It would be good if the other party was confused by the water moon illusion body and couldn't hit him. If he hit him, there would be purple ribbon robe to resist, giving the other party the illusion that he didn't hit him, making him think that he was really confused. Isn't it beautiful? As for the bullets shot at the boat, Fei Meng naturally helped to block them. So, when the strong man accurately shot down Zhao Chen's bullet, before he had time to catch his breath, he found that the boy who was rushing towards him had entered his 3-meter range. 3 feet. This is also the limit of Zhao Chen's current spiritual perception. Even if the soul power is slightly enhanced, when the true key is perfected, it only improves the quality of the spiritual perception, but the range does not change. The strong man immediately felt that his momentum was suppressed. He secretly said that it was not good. As the leader of the younger generation of the North Kishan Lianhuan village, his father was a Mana Realm monk. He had some understanding of the role of momentum confrontation in spiritual battle. He knew that he had met someone who was good at this, so while raising his gun and shooting, he did not hesitate to retreat and wanted to keep a distance. But how could Zhao Chen, who had finally approached the opponent, let him do as he wished? The true key in his body suddenly became red, blazing, and agitated. A feeling of nobility that made people want to kneel down immediately instantly filled the strong man's mind, making him stop subconsciously, and even the idea of fighting became a little weaker. Although this thought lasted only a moment, the strong man quickly bit his tongue and got rid of the influence, but it was enough for Zhao Chen, who was using his full strength to perform water moon illusion body, to approach him. Then, the orange-red blade of the sunset sword drew a beautiful arc and pierced the strong man's neck. This sword was like an orange-red thunderbolt, so fast that the people watching the battle on the boat could only see the flash of light and could not find the sword at all. It was so fast that even the strong man's eyes, which had long been trained, could only barely catch the shadow of the sword. The sword had passed, and the sound was just heard. This was the ultimate move of Chen Pingxi, the thunder sword in the mist of history, the first of the thunder 3 slashes. At this moment, the sword light suddenly flashed, and it was also too fast to see clearly. It was the strong man from the North Kishan Lianhuan village who drew out his sword at the critical moment and narrowly blocked Zhao Chen's sword. Dang. The swords of both sides hit each other, and the sound was crisp and spread far away, like the sound of a temple bell. A layer of white sweat broke out on the man's back. If he had been a little slower, he would have been killed. This man is not a match for him, so he should take a long-term view. But before he could rejoice, another gunshot was heard. The close range burst from the famous gun scorching sun hit his chest and sent him flying backwards. It was Zhao Chen who twisted his body with the reverberating force of the long sword, causing the fire gun hidden in his waist to fire. This move of swinging the sword and returning the gun is one of Qi Fimeng's signature methods, and Zhao Chen has only learned the basics now. The intense pain made the man suddenly sober up, realizing that at the moment, when the swords collided, he was once again affected by the opponent's true key. What kind of evil true key is this? If it weren't for the amulet given by my father to ward off disasters, I would have died just now. The man grimaced in pain. Even though the shot was not fatal, it still caused him serious internal injuries. At this point, if the strong man could not see that Zhao Chen had a powerful protective magic weapon that could completely ignore his bullets, then he would be a real fool. But he was obviously not. So, taking advantage of the distance he had, when he flew backwards, he injured the pain on his body and used his hands and feet to run away desperately. Just when Zhao Chen was preparing to completely solve this Kishan Lianhuan's Hey bandit with a red cloud bullet with cold eyes, 2 gunshots suddenly came from a distance. Bang, bang. The 2 bullets flew in a strange and tricky route, bypassing all the strong man's defenses. In the end, 1 bullet smashed his head and the other opened a big hole in his chest. And all the protective measures on the strong man failed to work. This power, this speed, is comparable to the life spell, right? Which gunfighting technique master shot this? Just as Zhao Chen was surprised, a figure riding a maroon horse galloped over. He was wearing a black leather jacket, a top hat of the same color on his head, riding boots on his feet, and holding a long musket in each hand, 1 white and 1 black, with exquisite shapes, very eye-catching. Desert Eagle Yan San. Chapter 145. You are very good. Dun Huang, in a private room of a restaurant. The second hero Ma Guanglian with a shiny head said worriedly, "Brother, there is still no news from Blood Shadow." Ma Guangming, the sun sword who was drinking a little wine by the stove, put down the wine glass he had picked up and frowned, saying, "No news yet? Even if Mingsu is unwilling to help us, Blood Shadow should come back to report. At this point, he tapped the plate with side dishes with chopsticks, thought for a while, and asked, when was the last time Blood Shadow sent a message back? He sent a telegram from Human more than a week ago. But because the telegram itself is not safe, and it is easy to leak secrets, he just simply reported that he was safe. Ma Guanglian replied. More than a week ago, it seems something happened. Ma Guangming's expression became serious, and he continued to ask, has anything major happened near Dunhuang recently? How can there be any major events in a small place like Dunhuang? Ma Guanglian sighed helplessly, but still listed a few influential events. First, the purple-bearded King Khan Kaio Zhao of the alien camp abandoned his soldiers and fled when he encountered the magical battle between Song Weiru and Li Fuchen last time. He was reported. Although this is understandable, he is obviously no longer suitable to lead the alien camp, so he was transferred to the county city and replaced by a new lieutenant. This new lieutenant comes from a magical family in Shanzhou. At a young age, he has the 6th level of magic power. In addition, his family may have a feud with Iron Sword General, so he agreed on a date for a fight with him as soon as he arrived. It seems that he wants to use this to establish his prestige in the army. Although the deadline for Iron Sword General Lu Qi is approaching, he is definitely not a soft specimen. This new lieutenant may have made a wrong calculation. Ma Guangming sneered and shook his head. What else? Ma Guanglian continued. Secondly, the Z family was discovered by a slayer of evil named Zhao Chen to be the base of the Four Evils Hall, and was therefore completely wiped out. The Z family is the base of the Four Evils Hall? I really didn't see it before. But it's a good thing that these evil subordinates are wiped out. As he spoke, Ma Daksha, with his hair loose and a rather bohemian look, seemed to remember something and asked, Zhao Chen. I remember that my 6th brother mentioned this person in his previous letter. He seems to have a close relationship with Yan Hongxia. He defeated Shishian Lui of the Green Snake Martial Arts School when he was still in the Key Realm. That's right, and according to the latest news, this young Master Zhao defeated a group of more than 10 horse thieves in the street of Blackwind Castle. Even Ally Yu Hong, the earth-drilling sandworm, could not escape, and died in his hands. Ma Guanglian nodded. Because the long sword in his hand is red, some people have nicknamed him Jade-Faced Shura and Blood Sword Young Master. I think my 3rd brother is very interested in this news. Ma Daksha said with a smile. 3rd brother Yan should have known. Ma Guanglian also laughed and continued. Speaking of the 3rd brother, he left the city early this morning because people from the Lianhuan's and Biki Mountain were active near Dunhuang, looking for something. This is also the 3rd thing I want to say. Really? Ma Guangming's expression suddenly became solemn, and he said carefully, do you think that Blood Shadow could have fallen into the hands of 4 evil blades, and they got the information about the secret oasis, so they searched for it near Dunhuang? It's very likely. Ma Guanglian also nodded in approval. The people from the North Kishan Lianhuan village have rarely come to Dunhuang in the past 7 or 8 years. It is definitely not a coincidence that they are frequently active in this area. Upon hearing this, the hero Ma Guangming stood up and walked back and forth in the private room for several circles, as if he was weighing something. After about a quarter of an hour, he stopped and said in a decisive tone, we can't wait any longer, otherwise we will be beaten to it by the people from the North Kishan Lianhuan village. You make arrangements. After my 3rd brother comes back, we will call my 3rd brother, 4th brother, and 5th sister to a meeting. By the canal near the Flame Mountain, Zhao Chen looked at the middle-aged man who was getting closer and closer, and he felt the pressure in his heart unconsciously. That feeling was like facing a tank coming head-on, with overwhelming momentum. Fortunately, Zhao Chen himself was also a master at building momentum, and knew that this was caused by the opponent's reputation and the action of easily killing the strong man just now, which had shocked his mind. So he just made a slight adjustment to weaken this effect. After all, the opponent was not deliberately targeting him. Speaking of which, Zhao Chen had heard of the reputation of Desert Flying Eagle Yansen on the first day he came to this world. Although the opponent had only cultivated the 9 orifices, his combat power was not inferior to that of ordinary mana cultivators. Yan Hongxia admitted that she could not beat her uncle before she cultivated the Red Emperor Yang Yuan Sword Key into a lifelong magic spell. Zhao Chen was still skeptical at first, but after seeing it today, the divine eagle gun fighting technique was indeed well deserved. The reason why he could recognize him at a glance was, firstly, because he had seen the portrait of Yan Sanxia in Yan Hongxia's place. Secondly, because the other party's unique outfit was so recognizable that it was hard not to recognize him. Although many people had imitated Yan Sanxia's dressing style in the past, they looked out of place because of the huge difference in temperament, and Yan Sanxia had many enemies, so it was easy to be accidentally injured or vent anger. Nowadays, almost no one does such a thing. At this time, seeing Yan Sanxia riding a horse approaching, Zhao Chen thought about it, took the initiative to bow and said, "Junior Zhao Chen, meet Yan Sanxia." From Sister Hongxia's point of view, he should indeed call himself a junior. Yansen was obviously here for the people of the North Kishan Lianhuan village. He didn't want to have much contact with the young man in front of him, but after hearing the other party introduce himself, he suddenly turned his head, his eyes as sharp as an eagle, staring at Zhao Chen's face. The next moment, his whole body suddenly flew into the air, and then he pinched his right wrist with his left hand, as if pinching a snake, and then he struck out with his right palm, moving his whole body, forming a mysterious trajectory of a flying python with his right arm, left hand, and spine. With this palm strike, the nearly 50-meter distance between him and Zhao Chen disappeared, and the palm wind blew in his face, fierce and unparalleled. The strength, true energy, and air mass formed a snake-shaped storm, which almost made Zhao Chen stand unsteady. The power of this move far exceeded the normal 9 orifices, and it actually brought about the power of the vitality of heaven and earth, which was almost comparable to the slightly inferior birth magic. Facing this sudden palm, Zhao Chen seemed to have noticed it long ago. The moment before the opponent flew to attack, he had already unfolded the sunset sword and urged the Red Emperor Yang Yuan to transform the 5 immortal spiritual true energy and sent out the ultimate move of Chu Yang sword. Sunset is like blood. The complete version of this move still needs to use blood essence to activate the evil spirit contained in the sunset sword, but Zhao Chen had already seen that Yan Sanxia had no intention of killing, so there was no need to go to extremes. He just used the characteristics of Red Emperor's nourishing ki to forcibly use a simple version of this move. Bang! As the vitality brought by the two moves collided, an explosion-like sound spread, and a strong wind blew in all directions, blowing sand and rocks within a radius of dozens of feet, like fog and haze, as if it had been bombarded. Zhao Chen retreated more than 10 steps before he stabilized his body. He felt a little stuffy in his chest, but fortunately he was not injured, but the churning blood and ki were difficult to calm down for a while. At this time, Yan Sanxia did not continue to attack. He stood with his palms closed, and a smile of appreciation appeared on his serious face. He said, "You are very good. Update progress, 13/45. Chapter 146 Sisters." Yansen had no hostility towards him. Zhao Chen knew this from the moment he put away his double guns and used palm techniques. Otherwise, with the terrible power of his gunfighting technique, if Zhao Chen wanted to save his life, he would have to completely expose the effect of the purple ribbon robe. However, even so, Zhao Chen's strongest sword, which he had only used his own strength, could only barely block that palm. And this was because Yansen withdrew some of his strength at the last moment. Such a powerful move can be launched and withdrawn, and controlled freely. It is worthy of being a famous hero who can compete with the monks in the realm of mana. The actual combat power is far higher than that of ordinary 9 orifices. Zhao Chen secretly praised him and replied, "You're too kind. Excessive modesty is hypocrisy. You are indeed quite good." Yan Sanxia waved his hand and said in a flat tone, "Don't say it's me. Even Hongxia girl is far from reaching this level at your age." At this point, he paused, looked in the direction of the ship, and said with a stern expression, "Tell the master on the ship to restrain himself. I hate it most when someone aims a musket at my head." Aiming at your head. Zhao Chen was stunned at first, and then he suddenly realized that Qifei dreamed that he was suddenly attacked, so he was ready to support at any time. He smiled unconsciously on his face, and then waved to the deck of the ship, indicating that the alert was lifted. Yansen's tense expression instantly relaxed, and a faint arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. he said, I know your relationship with Xingcha, and I will not take advantage of you, a junior. All the items on that person can belong to you, but I have to check if there is any important information first. While speaking, he had already walked to the side of the person from the North Kishan Lionhuan village, squatted down and groped the other's headless body. It is rumored that Desert Eagle Jansen has a strange temper and is extremely difficult to get along with. Now it seems that 80% of it is because he is not very good at speaking and his behavior logic has some problems, so he gives people the feeling of being difficult to get along with. After all, who would directly use a trick to test his niece's friend? But this gentleman did it. If Yan Xingcha had not specifically reminded him when she talked to him about this uncle before, Zhao Chen would probably have misunderstood. Jansen quickly searched the sturdy man for a letter. After glancing at it, a solemn look appeared on his face. Then, he said to Zhao Chen, while jumping on his horse, I have something else to do, so I'll say goodbye. You'd better leave here quickly, as the people from the North Kishan Lionhuan village may come here at any time. After speaking, he didn't wait for Zhao Chen to answer, and rode his horse directly towards Dunhuang. Zhao Chen blinked, and deeply realized how the rumor that Yan Xingcha was difficult to get along with came about. He shook his head, and went to the body to search, but in the end he only found more than 20 strings of money and a waist knife of ordinary style, but the blade was faintly glowing with red light, and covered with evil patterns. As for other life-saving talismans and cultivation items, they had all been consumed in the previous battle. The culprit should be Yansan's 2 bullets, which penetrated through countless defenses of the sturdy man. Evil Sun Demon Sword, a fake magic weapon. It is forged from iron, or on the edge of the Hoan Mountain. Later, members of the Xinjiang Temple incorporated some of the effects of the "greed indulgence method" from the Xinjiang 12 methods into it. People injured by this knife will gradually have certain desires in their hearts amplified. If they are not treated in time, they will eventually be devoured by the desires, and become slaves to them. Long-term use of this knife will also erode the soul and amplify desires, but it is not obvious and none of its previous owners have noticed. The standard recycling price of Xingcha is 310 star coins. Looking at the introduction on the Jade Book, Zhao Chen sold the magic sword without hesitation, to prevent it from harming people again. At the same time, he also realized that he seemed to have a good affinity with the so-called 12 methods of heart light. It has only been a short time, but he has already seen the 5 methods of paper crane tracking method, foolishness controlling the mind method, anger producing anger method, suspicion suggestion method and the current greed indulgence method. In addition, he suspected that the heart plague stained on the dagger of senior brother Sun when he stabbed him, and the mind invisibility method contained in the toad light ribbon are also spells in the 12 methods of heart light. Of course, it is also possible that Fei Meng is actually the one who has a affinity with them. I only came into contact with Fei Meng because I have been acting with her. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen did not destroy the body, but let the headless body of the strong man lie on the sand, and he returned to the slowly moving ship. Are you okay? Fei Meng and others saw him jump onto the deck and immediately came up to him. It's nothing. It was just that hero Jansen who tested my martial arts. After Zhao Chen briefly explained, he looked around and asked, where is the girl in black? After she left the 5-element fire evil, she left on her own. At that time, Hero Jansen was, testing you, and our attention was drawn to it, so we couldn't stop her. Fei Meng paused, then added, and her lightness skills are quite amazing, and it's difficult for us to catch up with her. Is that so? Zhao Chen felt a little regretful, as he still wanted to figure out why the other party was being chased so closely by the people from the North Kishan Lionhuan village. At this time, Fei Meng seemed to remember something, and said uncertainly, by the way, when she saw Master Tao Zhao, her expression seemed to be unnatural for a moment. In a secret cave, covered by sand in the desert, a short girl in black paced back and forth, seeming a little anxious. Suddenly, the yellow sand at the entrance of the cave separated by itself, and a woman in tights, and with a rather slender figure walked in. Sister, you are here at last. I thought you were captured by the powerful master of the Lionhuan village in Beaky Mountain, and became his wife, and you completely forgot about me, your sister. The girl in black breathed a sigh of relief and joked with a smile. Hearing this, the slender and hotly dressed woman tapped her sister's forehead with her finger and pretended to be angry and said, "Sister, I risked my life to help you lead away that terrible old man, and you are still talking nonsense here. Do you have a conscience, girl? What's more, the desolate chant and soul-shaking hearing I got in the last gathering are really powerful. I, your sister, am no longer a show-off in the realm of magic power." At this point, she carefully looked at her sister and asked curiously, "What about you? I saw a group of people chasing you at that time. How did you escape?" This is actually also the credit of my sister's Yazizi Mew. The curse ability I gained after opening my eyes with it is really effective. The team chasing me first encountered a sandstorm, and then the leader took the initiative to provoke a super powerful boy, and finally even Jansen showed up. He was so unlucky. Thinking back to this, the girl in black was very happy, but her sister's expression gradually became solemn, and she frowned and said, "How can it be so effective?" It was as if Yazi was letting her sister borrow its power at will. Chapter 147. Why are there gold and silver feathers? With the woman's limited knowledge, she could not analyze the root cause of the problem, but she could roughly guess two possible reasons. Either Yazi had some plan and took a fancy to her sister and invested in her in advance, or Yazi itself might have some problems, causing it to lose control of the power it invested in desire. Whichever one it was, it would not be a good thing for her sister. After all, debts must be paid. Fortunately, the problem should not be very big in a short time, and these evil spirits can't exert much power in desire. As her thoughts turned, the woman, as the elder sister, comforted herself, then skipped the topic and asked, "By the way, is the thing we robbed still there?" "Of course it's still there. Besides, what do you mean by robbing? It was obviously us who got it first," the girl in black said, taking out a bronze box from her arms. When she opened the lid of the box, a sword-shaped token that looked like gold but not gold, and like jade but not jade was revealed. On the front of the token was engraved a word wealth written in regular script. A token? The people of the Lion who aren't in Beaky Mountain went to such great lengths to find it. The slender woman picked up the token and examined it for a while. She found that in addition to the word wealth on the front, there were also some patterns carved on the back of the token, but those patterns had a sense of unfinished business, as if something was missing. The woman, who had done some research on antiquities, immediately had a guess in her mind. There might be more than one such token, and they had to be collected to get a glimpse of the full picture of the patterns on the back. Seeing that her sister was looking at the token for a long time without any movement, the girl in black couldn't help but ask, "Sister, do you see anything? Is this thing valuable?" "I can't see, but it may be priceless in the hands of someone who needs it," the woman said after careful consideration. "Isn't that equivalent to waste? This job was in vain, and I also lost a bit of bad luck," the girl in black said a little frustrated. "No, I have a feeling that we may meet someone who needs it soon," the elder sister replied thoughtfully, and then changed the subject again. "But we can't stay in Ganzhou any longer. We have to leave immediately." The girl in black didn't care about her elder sister's ambiguous words. After all, she had experienced too many such things in the past. She just asked curiously, "Sister, where are we going? Do you have a goal?" "To Yangzhou in the southwest. I heard that the inheritance of the Kunlun Kyanghua school is about to be born there. I'm afraid there will be a lot of people trying their luck. And with more people, we sisters will have more opportunities." On the bank of the canal, on the sandy ground where Zhao Chen and Jansen had fought before, a cavalry of more than 10 people was gathering here, collecting the body of the strong man who was killed by Jansen. The leader of this group was an old man in a green robe, with a gaunt face, and a bloody strange long sword hanging on his waist. He was Yukon, the elder who passed on the skills of the Lionhuan village in Beaky Mountain. He was one of the 5 elders of the village, and his status was only second to the 4 village masters. However, at this time, the face of this elder who passed on the skills was full of sadness, and he couldn't even bear to look at the miserable state of the corpse not far away. Because the strong man whose head was blown to pieces was Yukon's only son, Yu Shaoling. Elder Brother Shaoling's cause of death was that he was shot in the head and chest at the same time. This is a classic move in the Divine Eagle gunfighting technique, and the murderer is undoubtedly Yan San. Only he can break through senior brother Shaoling's protective measures with just 2 bullets. The mountain stronghold master who had collected Yu Shaoling's body came to report. Good. Very good. The 7 heroes of the South Desert. Yan San, will take off your head sooner or later to commemorate my son. The green-robed old man gritted his teeth and said with hatred in his tone. At this time, a one-eyed man who looked to be in his 30s suddenly came over and whispered, "Elder, the letter that Shaoling brought was searched away. Search it away if they want." Humph, this time the 4 village chiefs will gather in Dunhuang. Even if the 7 heroes of the South Desert know in advance, what can they do? Yu Kun snorted and continued, "What's more, there is no important information in the letter. At most, they will think we are looking for something important." Having said that, he paused, then said, "By the way, don't let those 2 female thieves go. Although I don't know what's in the bronze box, the things that can be placed in the cave left behind by a Dangsuan monk are obviously not simple. Besides, if it weren't for those 2 bitches, Linga wouldn't have met Yan San." "Yes." The one-eyed man responded first, and then said confidently, "Please rest assured, Elder, I have tampered with the 5-element fire evil in the cave, and can track its whereabouts. Even if the 2 female thieves sell the evil spirit quickly, we can always get clues. Well, the female thief in the mana realm has 2 innate spells that attack the soul. They are weird and hard to defend. I suffered a little loss before, because I was not prepared. After you find them, don't act rashly, just report to me. 2 of my friends are coming soon. They are the descendants of a false god in Taixi. They are naturally not afraid of attacks from the soul." One day later, the ship carrying the caravan finally sailed into the dock outside Dunhuang. On the deck, Qi Fimeng looked at this city full of Western style, without much emotion in her eyes, as if this was not the place where she had lived for more than 10 years. "Fimeng, where do you live?" Zhao Chen asked curiously after looking around. "Why, do you still want to propose marriage to my family?" Qi Fimeng rolled his eyes and joked with a smile. If it were any other teenager, he would probably blush and not be able to speak properly, but Zhao Chen said with an unchanged expression, "It's not a bad idea. Anyway, I won't suffer any loss. Unfortunately, from the moment they sold me to the Che family, my relationship with them has ended." Qi Fimeng shook her head. "I came back this time just to tie up and take away the things I didn't have time to bring before." Zhao Chen looked at her delicate face carefully and did not find any emotions such as sadness, so he knew that she had really let it go. Perhaps in Fimeng's heart, her parents and relatives have also become ordinary people. This is probably more conducive to the practice of the Heart Sutra of great compassion and great mercy. I just don't know what position I hold in her heart. As his thoughts turned, Zhao Chen left senior brother Feng, Moqiu, Ning Meng and others to unload the goods, and he took Qi Fimeng and Tao Zhao, 2 locals of Dunhuang, into the city. Under the guidance of Tao Zhao, the 3 of them first came to a restaurant with extremely good business, and booked a room. Then they came to the private room on the 2nd floor, ordered a few dishes, and looked at the scene in the lobby of the restaurant through the window, while eating and drinking. And there was a storyteller sitting alone behind the square table in the center, with a pot of tea and a wake-up block in front of him, surrounded by many people from the martial arts world and idle people. The storyteller slapped the wake-up block and said loudly, "Why are the feathered clothes carrying gold and silver, infecting the peach and plum blossoms in the world?" It is said that a few days ago, a ruthless young man appeared in Black Wind Castle, known as Bloodsword Young Master. Chapter 148 Infecting the Peach and Plum Blossoms of the World. This young man's name is Zhao Chen. He is the owner of the Golden Art Martial Arts School in Yumen, and a slayer of evil envoys of the 9th rank in the Taoist officialdom. As soon as he debuted, he defeated the owner of the Green Snake Martial Arts School, Shishian Lui, who had opened the 4 orifices of his eyes and ears with his sword, and shocked everyone. The young master in green robe, Li Changsheng, praised him, saying, "The green dragon is unstoppable when it comes out of the sea, and the moon is revealed when the clouds are parted, reflecting the universe." This shows how powerful his swordsmanship is. A few days ago, the Golden Art Martial Arts School escorted a caravan to Black Wind Fort. a horse bandit, Liu Hong, led more than a dozen gunmen to provoke trouble in the street, and the Z family patrol team also colluded with them. At that time, young Master Zhao revealed his identity as the slayer of evil envoys, shouted back the patrol team, and then charged into the horse bandits alone with his sword. In an instant, he subdued more than a dozen gunmen, and killed the bandit leader Liu Hong, who had cultivated 4 orifices, on the spot. At this point, the storyteller also slapped the wake-up stick at the right time, setting the atmosphere quite well. Great. Cheers suddenly rang out all around. After all, who among the people living in the western regions has not suffered from horse thieves? So they all naturally stood on Zhao Chen's side. Hearing that he had killed the famous bandit leader with a sword, they were even more delighted and wished they could take his place. Are you talking about this incident? Zhao Chen was stunned for a moment, then he showed a very interested look. After all, this was flattering himself. However, he said, the news spread very quickly. Our caravan has a lot of goods, and we stayed in Black Wind Fort for several days. Naturally, we can't compare with the Lone Rangers who come and go in terms of speed. It is normal for the news to spread. What's more, the Dunhuan Weekly should have a branch in Black Wind Fort, and the news can be transmitted by telegraph. Since the storyteller has made it into a joke, it means that your heroic deeds, Mr. Chen, have already been reported in the newspaper. The gun-making master Tao Zhao explained with a smile. So that's it. It's all because the martial arts style of this world is too strong, which always makes me ignore the fact that the level of technology popularized in Daxia has almost reached the level before the First World War in the original world. While Zhao Chen was thinking, the storyteller in the lobby continued. Due to the incident of horse bandits provoking trouble, Zhao Zilangjian noticed the weirdness of the Z family, so he sneaked into the Z family bunker at night to find out the truth. As a result, it was discovered that the Z family had already surrendered to the evil followers, and both old and young, they all enjoyed cannibalism. There are countless people who have been victimized over the years. Out of righteous indignation, Zhao Zilangjian killed all the members of the Z family. It is said that even the sword in his hand was dyed red. That's why people call him Blood Sword Young Master and Jade Face Shura. The Z family is cannibalistic. Zhao Chen kills all the Z family members with his sword. His sword is stained red. Such explosive news made everyone look at each other in bewilderment. Some people think that Zhao Chen is too murderous, and it is too cruel to kill the whole family at will. Others think that the cannibals should be killed, and Zhao Zialang is chivalrous. Of course, more people question the authenticity of the story. After all, Zi Shuai, the head of the Z family, has the 9 orifices of cultivation. With Zhao Zialang's strength of opening 2 orifices at most, it is impossible for him to be defeated easily, even if his swordsmanship is superb. What's more, there are more than 100 people in the Z family, and they can kill a young man. There is another rumor about this. It is said that Zhao Zilangjian is handsome and has charmed many chivalrous women, including Hangsha Sword and a genius from a noble family. It was with the help of these confidants that he successfully broke into the Black Wind Castle and killed all the cannibals. In addition, this young man is obviously talented and has a promising future, but he chose to deal in business. Therefore, when submitting his article to Dunhuang Weekly, the editor-in-chief of Human Ringealist gave me the comment at the beginning, why does the feathered clothes carry gold and silver, infecting the peach and plum blossoms in the world? That's right. I was almost fooled by you just now. This makes sense. Most people showed a look of sudden realization, thinking that the latter rumor might be the truth. And everyone likes gossip, and this kind of story about heroes and beauties is obviously more popular. Who is the editor-in-chief of Human Ringealist? It seems that he doesn't get along with Sister Hangsha. Is he targeting me because of this? Zhao Chen was obviously not very happy when he heard that his first poem name was this. Qi Meng was overjoyed and said with a smile, I think this poetry name actually suits you quite well. Isn't it all thanks to your active promotion? Zhao Chen said with gritted teeth. He knew without thinking that the so-called the aristocratic family's genius like him was definitely leaked by Zheng Qinggan herself. Aren't you always secretly happy? Qi Meng covered her mouth and laughed. Should I thank you? Zhao Chen was quite helpless. After all, once this poetry name came out, his image would probably be tied to gossip. What's more, no matter whether it is Yan Hangxia or Zheng Qingyuan, there will definitely be no shortage of suitors, and there will probably be some trouble in the future. Fortunately, I'm still young now, and most people won't take it too seriously. Zhao Chen sighed slightly. Tao Zhao, who had been listening to the two people's bickering, was at a loss, and had no idea what the relationship between the two was. At the Dunhuang dock, Moqiu, the owner of the Black Cloud Martial Arts School, who was directing the caravan to unload the goods and successfully entering the city tax-free with the trade route documents, just breathed a sigh of relief and suddenly felt a trance. Having had similar experiences, she immediately realized that she had entered the shared visual state that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't, and was about to connect to the perspective of Sun Sword Ma Guangming. Soon, a letter appeared in front of her. The content of the letter was very obscure, and it basically informed the four leaders of the North Kishan Lianhuan village that something really existed and was near Dunhuang, and asked them to come immediately. But the letter didn't say anything about what it was. Ma Guangming put down the letter and looked around. His eyes swept over the faces of the second hero, a bright moon shining on Dunhuang Ma Guangliang, the third hero the flying eagle of the desert Yansan, the fourth hero the fire cloud gun Lu Zhen, and the fifth hero the eye of breaking delusion Gong Yun, among the 7 heroes of the southern desert. Then he sighed and said, "From the letter brought back by my third brother, the people of the North Kishan Lianhuan village have indeed got the news of the newly appeared secret oasis. We have to set off as soon as possible. We can't let those bandits get the treasures that may exist inside." The fourth hero Lu Zhen, who was wearing a high crown and a Taoist robe with a fire cloud pattern, frowned and said, "Brother, based on this letter alone, we can't confirm that the people of the North Kishan Lianhuan village are also targeting the hidden oasis, right? Maybe they came for something else? How can there be so many coincidences? And I can't think of anything else that can attract the 4 evil swords to come together, except for the newly appeared oasis." The second hero Ma Guangliang, with a shiny head, retorted. These words were well reasoned and Lu Zhen was speechless for a moment, and he just spoke out of caution, not to question his elder brother's decision. At this time, the only female hero present, Pohuanan Gong Yun, interrupted and said, "Aren't you waiting for the 6th brother and the 7th sister?" She had beautiful eyebrows and white teeth, shoulders like a knife, and a jade belt around her slender waist, showing her graceful figure to the fullest. Huiyan Lu Zhen spoke so actively just now, most of which was to show himself in front of her. The 6th brother's family is not peaceful. He has to help his father deal with many affairs of human, and he really can't get away. And the 7th sister Feng Wan is not in Ganzhou at the moment. Yan Sanxia said calmly. He and the North Kishan Lianhuans had a deep hatred, so he supported his elder brother's decision to explore the secret oasis first. Gong Yun narrowed his eyes when he heard this, looked at his elder and second brothers carefully, then nodded and said, "I don't have any problems. I just hope you can give me another night to prepare and set off tomorrow morning." Okay. Update progress, 14/45. Chapter 149. All parties. Since sharing Ma Guangming's vision again, Moqiu seemed to be worried, and he didn't recover until he had dinner with the rest of the caravan. This naturally attracted Zhao Chen's attention. After thinking about it, he winked at Qi Meng, who immediately understood and took the initiative to approach Moqiu and chat with him casually. But Moqiu was obviously not in the state and just dealt with it casually. After a while, Qi Meng returned to Zhao Chen and transmitted a voice. "Her mind is messy. I can't see too much. I only know that she seems to want to see the great being who made a deal with her again." "Want to see me? Could it be that Ma Guangming has made new moves and she saw it?" Zhao Chen said thoughtfully. "It's very likely. It seems that Ma Guangming has discovered the disappearance of Blood Shadow Zhuang Bufan, so he is unwilling to wait for possible support and decided to take a risk." Qi Meng paused at this point and said, "In addition, the people Zheng Qingyuan sent to keep an eye on him found that 5 of the 7 heroes of the South Desert have gathered in Dunhuang. It is obvious that they are about to take action. They may shake off our eyes at any time." Ever since he learned about the secret oasis from Moqiu, Zheng Qingyuan used the Zheng family's people in Ganzhou to keep an eye on Ma Guangming. Although they have the topographic features of the oasis in trance provided by MOQIU, it is not so easy to find the specific location in the vast desert. Otherwise, Zhao Chen and the others would have gotten there first, and why would they follow the caravan leisurely? Of course, with the strength of the Ma brothers, they would not fail to find the people who were following them, but the 7 heroes of the South Desert are too famous, and there are countless horse thieves who send people to keep an eye on them, and they usually don't bother to care. Zhao Chen thought for a moment and said, "It doesn't matter. As long as Yan Xingcha follows, I will find a way to find them." There is a secret means of communication between Yan Xingcha and her uncle, and what belongs to Sister Xingcha is naturally his, Zhao Chen's. However, Zhao Chen did not remind Yansen to be careful about Ma Guangming. After all, they are sworn brothers, and are as close as brothers. Without solid evidence, Yansen will definitely not believe it. What's more, the fact that Ma Guangming may be detrimental to his brothers is just MOQIU's conjecture. Qi Meng is smart and naturally guessed Zhao Chen's plan. She smiled and said, "In this case, we have to prepare. It's a pity that Zheng Qinggan can't get away, otherwise it would be much simpler. With Wang Daowei here, it doesn't make any difference." Zhao Chen paused, and then turned his attention to MOQIU, who was distracted, and smiled. "But we still have to find out what Master Mo saw first." Late at night, a house somewhere in the west of Dunhuang City, a black cat swiftly leaped into the yard, placed a piece of paper next to the open window, and after meowing a few times, it jumped onto the beam and disappeared into the night. After an unknown amount of time, a white hand stretched out from the house and picked up the piece of paper. About half a minute later, accompanied by a sigh, a flame lit up, and the paper was burned to ashes. In an abandoned fortress near Dunhuang, Yukon, the elder of transmission of skills of the Lion Huan's Hay of Beaky Mountain, was respectfully reporting to a man in his 30s with a scar on the right side of his cheek who was sitting at the top. 7 bandit forces, including Ghost Crow, White-Headed Man, Purple Sword Demon Girl, etc., have recently gathered near Dunhuang with unknown intentions. But according to the news sent back by our informants, these forces are more or less connected with Ma Guangliang, the second hero of the 7 heroes of the South Desert. A bright moon shining on Dunhuang. A bright moon shines on Dunhuang. This nickname was originally just a satire on Ma Lao's bald head and shiny forehead. Who would have thought that he would gladly accept it, and now it has evolved into a new meaning, as if he is the light in the dark night of Dunhuang. The scarred man first sneered, then narrowed his eyes and said, "Based on my understanding of the Ma brothers, they are afraid that they will make a big move. So they called the horse thieves they raised in secret to confuse the public, so that they can take the opportunity to get rid of the surveillance and disappear in front of people. But it doesn't look like they are coming for us. After all, our target is in the city of Dunhuang." Hearing this, the elder who passed on the skills asked carefully, "Then the 4 leaders, do we still need to keep an eye on the 7 heroes of Emonan?" The man called the 4 leaders nodded and said, "Of course. No matter what the 7 heroes of Emonan want to do, we can't let them succeed easily. If we can take the opportunity to kill 1 or 2 of them, it will be even better." Human, the Li family's residence. The young man in green robe, Li Chengsheng, looked at the bright moon in the sky, raised his wine glass, and drank it all. Then he threw the wine glass into the pond, muttering, "Brother, what do you want to do? This is the last chance I give you, brother. I hope you won't take that step." After saying that, his melancholy expression suddenly disappeared, and he became wild and unrestrained. He hugged the 2 maids who poured wine for him, and laughed and chanted, "I have no ambition to be free, and I'm an idle person who follows flowers and willows. Ha ha ha." In a daze, MOQIU seemed to have come to that mysterious space full of fog again, and saw the tall stone tablet that could not be seen at a glance. But before she woke up from her muddled state, her misty eyes met a pair of eyes that made her unconsciously indulge in them. Obviously, she was hit by the idiot word control mind method again. When MOQIU's eyes became completely empty, the fog around him suddenly disappeared, revealing the original appearance of the bedroom in the restaurant. Although the illusion created by Lao Tao's Mirage Pearl magic weapon is indeed realistic, it consumes too much soul power. In just a few seconds, I have consumed nearly 30% of my soul power. Zhao Chen rubbed his forehead and complained a few words. When he was in Blackwind Castle, Tao Zhao, the master of gun casting, exchanged a set of Gangsha realm skills from Zhao Chen, but he didn't have enough to pay the bill at that time, so he bought it on credit. Now that he is in Dunhuang, he naturally has to pay it back. This Mirage Pearl magic weapon is one of the treasures that the other party used to pay the debt. It's because you are too strict about the details of the illusion. If it's just a fuzzy background projection, it won't consume much. Qi Fimeng explained with a smile. Zheng Qinggan herself is a master of creating illusions, so she is naturally familiar with this aspect. Simply put, this is the difference between modeling with real structure and direct mapping, and the requirements for the processor are naturally different. Zhao Chen admitted that his current configuration cannot run such advanced effects. He shook his head helplessly and said, "Forget it, let's ask Master Mo what he saw first." Chapter 150 Various Yellow Birds. In a guest room of the restaurant, Moqiu, who was sleeping soundly, opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling for a long time before she seemed to regain her thoughts and sat up suddenly. She checked herself and found that she was still wearing the black dress that was easy to move and her feet were not stained with dust. When she was out, she usually slept with her clothes on. But soon, she picked up a secret book from her hand, which was what she had just exchanged from the unknown great existence with Ma Guangming's information. I really entered that mysterious space again, but this time I was confused the whole time, as if I had a dream. Maybe it's because of my bad condition? What exactly is that place? When Moqiu was secretly wondering, the sound of her getting up startled the little girl Ning Meng who was sleeping in the same room. The latter whispered, "Master? Well, I was awakened by a dream and disturbed you." Moqiu responded, after coming to his senses. Who would have thought that after hearing her words, Ning Meng's already red eyes were filled with tears. She rushed into her arms in a few steps and sobbed, "Master, you are finally back to normal." Due to the sequelae of visual sharing, Moqiu was in a trance for the whole afternoon, which naturally did not escape Ning Meng's eyes. The little girl was worried, but she could do nothing. Moqiu also thought of this at this time. His eyes gradually became gentle. He stretched out his hands to hug Ning Meng's little head buried in his chest and said softly, "It's okay. I made you worry." Since she told that existence about everything that was stuck in her heart, she no longer needed to bear the condemnation of her conscience. She just had to wait for the result. Most of the sequelae of her visual sharing were caused by the torment of her heart. But Moqiu did not wait for a response. She only heard a woohoo sound coming from her chest, and Ning Meng's two arms were still pushing her hard. She burst out laughing and quickly let go of her hand. Ning Meng then sat up straight and accused, "Master, you almost suffocated me." As she spoke, her eyes looking at Moqiu's chest revealed a bit of complexity, with resentment and envy. "Okay, don't be angry. Master has found a good thing for you." Moqiu touched his apprentice's head like coaxing a child, then stuffed the jade bow secret she exchanged for into the other's hand, and said with a smile, "You can't practice the internal skills in Black Cloud Palm and Yun Taoist book. After breaking through to the true key realm, you can't make any progress. Maybe it's because your physique and the skills are not compatible. And this jade bow secret is a method of refining moonlight into true key. It may be useful to you." This secret book is one of the collections of the Z family. Since it is only a Kigen method, Zhao Chen did not take it seriously at first and sold it directly to Xingcha. After Moqiu told what she saw through shared vision, out of the necessity of transaction, under the guidance of Zhao Chen, she said what she needed, martial arts suitable for Ning Meng to practice. And Zhao Chen already knew that the little girl with silver hair and red eyes was a vampire, so after searching for a while, he picked out this jade bow secret. Ning Meng was not too excited. After all, she had changed many kinds of martial arts over the years, but there was no progress, and she was already extremely disappointed. But she still said obediently, "Thank you, master. This time is different." Moqiu said earnestly, and then asked casually, "Did you hear any unusual movements before?" "No." Ning Meng thought about it, and shook her head affirmatively. So, could it be that the mysterious space is in a dream or a similar spiritual world? In the room next to Moqiu and Lemon, Qi Meng chuckled and said, "This Master Mo is really meticulous. Fortunately, you use the cleaning technique and dust removal technique to clean the dust on her body and clothes. Otherwise someone might have really discovered the clues. These little spells that make life more convenient were taught to Zhao Chen by Yan Hangxia. Originally, only cultivators who had cultivated mana and true essence could use them, but Zhao Chen could use the purple light ring to borrow Yan Hangxia's power, so there was naturally no problem. No one is a fool. What's more, unlike last time, she was in a state of foolish mind control technique the whole time this time, so she naturally felt something was wrong. Zhao Chen replied casually, but he sighed in his heart. It seems that the role of traveling merchant can no longer provide me with help in cultivation. The 9th grade position really strictly corresponds to the true key realm of this world. In that case, I have to get the escort of sequence 8, or the 8th grade position Starship Defense Envoy, before I can continue to rely on the role playing of the position to quickly improve. I just don't know when I can encounter other fragments of the Dairi crossing chat again. The next morning, Zhao Chen and Qi Meng received news that many horse thieves appeared around Dunhuang and the 7 heroes of Emonan went out of the city to drive them away. The two of them had expected this, so after a simple greeting with Moqiu and senior brother Feng, they left the city from the west gate. Then, after finding a secluded place with no one, Qi Meng circulated her true key and activated another spell on the Zuan Bing Yi that Zhao Chen gave her, Ice Wings. Two crystal clear beautiful wings covered with ice crystals spread out from behind Qi Meng. After flapping gently, they soared into the sky and hung far behind the 7 heroes of the southern desert. At this time, Zhao Chen, who was held in Qi's arms and able to fly with her, felt a little strange in his heart because he noticed that Qi Meng seemed to have grown in the past few weeks. But Zhao Chen didn't dare to think about it at all. After all, he was not on a horse, so he could only visualize the true form diagram of the 5 Emperors tour in his mind and actively transform the nature of his true energy. However, Qi Meng was very familiar with him, so how could she not know what he had secretly thought before? So she glanced at him with contempt. In a small oasis in the desert, Yukon, the elder who passed on the skills of the Lionhuan village of Beaky Mountain, was originally here to welcome his 2 friends from the west, but at this moment, a one-eyed man in his 30s suddenly rode his horse and reported, "Elder, the 2 female thieves who stole things seem to have left the city. According to my perception, they are rushing to the edge of the endless desert." The edge of the endless desert? Where are they going? And what are they doing? Is there a secret base for them? Yukon thought for a while, turned to the 2 westerners and said, "You two, I need your help to deal with the master of the mana realm who is good at using soul attacks." Yukon knew the way westerners spoke, so he didn't beat around the bush and directly promised benefits. "Afterwards, I will mobilize my own people to help you find the tribe member who awakened the Phoenix bloodline." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.